Zach.
Yo, what up?
What's up, Zach?
What's everybody doing? Talking
What do you
about
do? What do you do?
what do I do? I'm breathing. What it do?
Can you believe after all of that evidence we shot over? I don't think she had a chance to look at it. That's the problem. I tried to nail her down and okay, who's Revelation 18 talking about? I wanted her to say Mystery Babylon and then give her the verse that Jesus says to the Pharisees that matches. I didn't get a chance though. There's
just so many questions. She's got a lot of questions.
right. But
Yes.
I'm sure you guys are aware. If you looked at it, you might have forgot that the verse in Hosea 10 that talks about saying to the mountains, "Cover us," and the hills, "Fall on us," which is obviously against Israel, is quoted in Jesus quotes it in Luke 23. And it's the same verse quoted in Revelation 6, all pertaining to Israel. I wanted to bring that out to Sandy because if she believes that, some of this stuff is future.
Say that again, would you, Matthew? Could you go over that again? I kind of dozed a little bit there.
In Hosea 10, the context of Hosea is that he's married to the harlot, depiction of God married to Israel. It's a judgment against Israel. And what does it say? In 10:6, the idol also shall be carried to Assyria as a present for King Jareb. Ephraim shall receive shame, and Israel shall be ashamed of his own counsel. As for Samaria, her king is cut off like a twig on the water. Also, the high places of Avon, the sin of Israel, shall be destroyed. The thorn and the thistle shall grow on their altars. They shall say to the mountains, "Cover us," and to the hills, "Fall on us." So that's the quote in Luke 23:27. But Jesus, starting with 28, Jesus turning to them said, "Daughters of Jerusalem, do not weep for me, but weep for yourselves and for your children. For indeed the days are coming in which they will say, 'Blessed are the barren wombs that never bore, and breasts which never nursed.' Then they will begin to say to the mountains, 'Fall on us,' and to the hills, 'Cover us.'" And you see the same language in Revelation 6. "And the kings of the earth, and the great men, and the rich men, and the chief captains, and the mighty men, and every bondman, and every free man hid themselves in the dens and in the rocks of the mountains, and said to the mountains and rocks, 'Fall on us, and hide us from the face of him that sits on the throne, and from the wrath of the Lamb. For the great day of his wrath is come, and who shall be able to stand?'" It's just another proof of who Mystery Babylon is.
Any of you watched that video? Go ahead.
Which one?
The one that I posted under the Bible study tools, I think it was the battle, the actual siege. Like it showed you point by step, how the whole battle went.
This is live footage?
No, it's live footage. No, no, it's by the Kings in General channel. They use video game footage to simulate how it might have been.
I think I watched a little bit of that one, yeah.
They do animations, but it's interesting to see exactly how it all went down, the specific maneuvers of it. There were multiple times where Titus almost lost, but he didn't.
Interesting. I'm looking at it now.
Yeah, it's a really good video. It's a little long, but
it's only 22 minutes.
It's worth it.
Yeah. I think you've posted that before.
I did, but I don't think anybody watched it.
I mean,
Mainly, I posted it for Sandy, I think. For
Yeah.
Sandy, so she could see that, like, this is how it went down. Like, you see how sudden destruction came upon them? They had at least 2 times, if you want to count it, 2 times that they could have escaped because they were surrounded by the armies. But the second time they were surrounded by the armies was the part that I was talking about, the 68 AD time. That's when Ananas and whatnot, right after they went down, Ananas and the other Jesus went down, or Joshua, and after that they got circled by the wall and they were trapped. Like, that was it. If you didn't get out beforehand, if you didn't heed the warning when you were surrounded the first time, like, you're stuck now. You're one of the tares. You're gathered together to get burned.
I'm sorry, my concentration was broken. What was that?
That was a coffee cup that hit the floor hard.
Did it shatter?
Yeah, it did.
Who'd you get mad at, Matthew? I can't take it anymore.
He was giving a demonstration of how Israel, the power of the people,
the power of the holy people.
Yeah, it's completely shattered.
It was shattered. That was actually Rochelle. She knocked over a coffee cup. Luckily, it was empty.
Was it keto coffee?
Sounded like it broke pretty good.
Oh yeah, the tile. We moved down into our new bedroom, and the whole floor is tile.
Now you're gonna have to replace the tile because it's broken.
No, the tiles.
Is it heated tile?
Yeah.
That's funny. I was just about to ask that.
I figured you would have heated tile.
I have heated walls in my shower.
Did you finish it yet?
How about your toilet seat?
I put the wire. It's normally done on floors. It's electric, and I put that up the walls because I hate being cold when I shut the water off in the shower.
Nice. So your bathroom's warm all the time then?
Yeah, it's warm all the time.
What about what Rob said, the toilet seat?
Well, I probably don't have to worry about it since the whole room's warm.
No, the toilet's not hooked up yet because my plumber is too busy. In fact, the heat in the floor is not working yet.
Oh, that sucks.
He didn't hook it up yet because he's too busy. But we have a gas fireplace in here. That's what's warming up the place now.
What's the temperature like today?
It's actually not that cold out, believe it or not. But I got to shut the fireplace on the lowest setting. I got to use it intermittently because it heats up the room too much.
Start sweating.
Yeah. But anyway.
I think the temperature today was like, I think we're like in the 80s.
Oh wow.
I know.
That's nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got the. Go ahead.
I have to find out why, or I want to ask Sandy. It's hard to do it in the text. Why would you scrap so many things for the future, but then, put Mystery Babylon? That would have to be a revived Roman Empire, and there would have to be a big gap in Daniel's 70 weeks.
I'll tell you why. It's because somewhere else in the scriptures, while you're saying these things, there's a verse or verses elsewhere that she's thinking of. And so she's not hearing what you're saying or something like that because she's thinking these other verses. So you have to find out what these other verses are. And you have to conquer those first because that's what's tripping her up as far as I can tell.
I mean, I know she just posted earlier about, was the frogs literal, like in the Exodus? And, I could imagine, coming from that mindset going, okay, well, obviously the Exodus was a literal thing. So if that was literal, why would God not do it again if he used the same language? But that's the thing. I mean, it's not 100% of the time that when God says something literally, it's going to literally happen that way.
Right.
That's another thing that, I needed to learn.
Right. And
I never knew.
The literal comes first and then the spiritual, right?
I mean,
So
yeah, I mean.
The first Exodus was literal.
That's right.
Exodus
See?
is spiritual.
See, and now that verse makes
Exactly.
more sense because the natural comes first, then the spiritual. So first time would be literal. Second time, maybe not.
Yeah, no, I mean it's. But again, we were all there. It took me a long time. It took me probably like a good year and a half to actually accept it.
Yeah, I was just watching Doug's video, and he was saying it took him 6 months to a year to. He just recently kind of has been making some videos that say the second coming happened in 70 AD.
But Zach is a strange case because Zach was advocating for it before he accepted it.
Yeah. Because I saw it. I was just like, there's really no way around it. Like all these explicit texts. Like I even said that to Sandy today. I was like, she's talking about the two witnesses. And I'm like, well, you need to figure out the easy parts first before you start figuring out like who these people are and whatnot. I mean, that's up to debate. But where were these bodies located? And when was it, like when was this going to happen? So again, we can decipher from the text that it's Old Covenant Israel. Well, Old Covenant Israel ended. So if she's gone, that means these two witnesses had to have happened within this time period when the temple was still standing, which Revelation 1:11 talks about, that the temple was still standing there. So, I mean, it just makes a lot more sense when you think about it that way. But again,
That's what Stacy was wondering about, how she would see Revelation 11, what temple says in the future, past.
Well, you would have to say, I guess, past. I mean, future, if you're thinking the two witnesses. I mean, that's just pretty much what it is. I mean, again, I was there too. Takes time. Because I'm pretty sure this is the first time she's ever heard of like a pretty, panel of full preterists or partial preterists or whatnot.
Oh yeah. I don't think anybody's like, oh yeah, there's like a group of those preterists out there, those predatorists. They're gonna get you. But no, we're growing apparently, because I have seen some people say that like we got to watch out for these preterists, like they're taking over, like we got to stop them.
Yeah,
So
somebody.
I want to bring out something else about the two witnesses. It's like I heard a teaching once by John MacArthur about how you should act toward a brother in the church who sins against you, taken from Matthew 18.
Mm-hmm.
And I heard that long after I became a partial preterist and started to look at the scriptures with a covenantal lens, and I looked at it and I'm like, this guy is so off base. This has nothing to do with how you're supposed to treat a brother who sins against you in the church. This is about Israel. And when Jesus says, if your brother sins against you, he's talking about Israel. Go and show him his fault between you and him alone. If he listens to you, you've gained your brother. But if he doesn't listen, take one or two more with you, that at the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses, every word may be established. He's quoting again.
But afterwards, after that, though, it's the entire assembly.
Right.
So that's the destruction of the AD 7.
That's destruction.
God's
right. Israel refuses to listen, just like in the parable of Lazarus and the rich man.
Yeah, exactly. I agree. That's awesome. I wish I had recorded the first thing you said, but I was like a minute too late. All that beautiful stuff that you said before I pushed record, Matthew.
I don't remember what it was.
You started with Deuteronomy and you worked your way from Deuteronomy all the way forward, showing
Yeah, the 2 or 3 witnesses.
2 or 3 witnesses.
I mean, anybody could just type in 2 witnesses and you'll see all those verses.
Exactly.
That's what I love about word series.
Yeah, and you got the Zechariah stuff. Yeah, of course. But what about that son of perdition verse? Because that's the other part of this equation here.
Where is that? Thessalonians?
Maybe
Oh, that's the man of sin verse.
the man of sin. Yeah, the son of perdition. Yeah. Well, don't you think if he was the man of sin, like, come on, the Romans weren't under it, so so the man of sin has to be somebody, don't you think? That's part of the whole system, part of the game. He's the one that's more likely to sit in the temple pretending to be God, showing himself as God even though he's not, or however you want to word it. I know the Roman emperors did think themselves to be gods, but like, come on. Just like the naysayers of preterism say. They say, oh no, like there's never any time where any of these Roman dudes ever did that. And they might be right. But that's because maybe it wasn't a Roman it was talking about. Maybe it was talking about somebody else, a Jew.
Yeah, I have heard like it's Don Preston and like the William Bell camp. They think all those were like it was really the Jewish like leadership, like the priesthood.
Mm-hmm. And well, it was either
Like
the
that was
priesthood
the
or
beast. Like it has nothing like Rome wasn't the beast or something like that.
well, yeah, no, I feel you. Yeah. I think there's two beasts. So, like one of the beasts is definitely Rome because the woman rides on the beast.
I always
That's
thought Rome was the beast.
that is, but there's a sea beast, which is Rome, and then there's the land beast. The land beast is Israel.
Well, both beasts are basically Leviathan and Behemoth.
Exactly, and Behemoth. Yeah, exactly. Not actual dinosaurs. Sorry, Ken. Sorry, Ken Hovind.
Yeah, I mean, I gotta listen to more. Like Don Preston, they like I never really paid too much attention to when they had brought up those particular points. Like I heard them, but I was just like, at work, so I'm not giving it like 100%. So I'm like, I wonder how like they're really thinking that. Because to me, it makes a lot more sense that it is obviously like the Roman Empire and stuff, but they're talking about, you know, this Israel leadership, you know.
Right.
So
Well, because the woman rode on or whatever rode on the beast. The beast was Rome. Like they were kind of controlled by Rome, but they still had their own freedoms and powers available to them as long as they didn't get too uppity. But they did get uppity, and that's what caused the issue. And then that's why the dragon, the beast, turned on the woman and kicked her butt. But yeah, I don't know. Where was this? You said Thessalonians is the perdition, son of man of sin guy?
I'll look it up.
Wasn't it Second Thessalonians 2:7?
I don't know where it was.
Yes.
Second Thessalonians. So wasn't what we just looked at? Was it in the same place?
The one I read.
It was the same sentence, the same verse, right? The same
Are you looking for
verses.
son of perdition?
Yeah, the son of perdition is the same one that said the other thing. The restrainer.
Oh, I don't know. I didn't read son of perdition.
Yeah, it says the restrainer will be taken out of the way, and then the son of perdition will be revealed. Well, to me, that makes perfect sense if it's this John of Giscala or whatever his name was, person, because he was always secretly trying, according to Josephus, to take over the temple and do that kind of thing anyway. And so he would ride on the beast of Rome. He's using Rome to do this. He's using it to rise back. He's the leader of the zealots, for Christ's sake. You feel me? There is no more further away from Christ than this guy.
Yeah, and if the mystery of lawlessness was already at work then
Yes.
what? It's been going on for 2,000 years?
Yeah, it doesn't make sense. No, it was this guy back then, and it was already at work because he was still there.
He's already restraining. So who do you guys say the restrainer is?
I say the restrainer was Ananas, but I could be wrong. Or it was the other guy. It was either Ananas, and it was either both two witnesses together, Ananas and the other guy.
What about it being a Roman emperor?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
what I heard some people
I
say.
know Rob's goes with that.
Right. Yeah, I think Rob would say that it was before Nero. That guy, Claudius.
Right.
But I think Claudius is a little bit too early. But then again, he thinks mine is too late.
Half a dozen apple pie.
I don't know. It makes most sense to me. I don't know. Really, what do you guys think? We've been talking about this all night. You other guys that just came, what do you think about this whole? The guys I said, like being that, and then this John of Giscala guy being
Well,
the
I've never
son
heard
of
of these
Perdition.
people before.
I never have either.
Well, no. Now is your time to use your favorite friend, Google. Your.
I think this guy John, his name was John Levi, but I think he was from a place called Giscala.
Okay, or Giscala or Guscala, whatever however it's said. I posted it. His name is there on the Resurrection channel shortly after where I posted it, but it's also on the article that I posted, I think. But either way, I think it was him because he was the guy going against Ananas and the other guy. It makes sense that the two of them were taken out. Well, then now the restrainer, he was the only thing keeping the temple from being destroyed was this guy, or both of these guys. And then as soon as they die, it's game over for the Jews. Like, that's it. There's nobody now stopping you. You're full apostasy. Like, your measure has been filled all the way up to the top. You're done.
Yeah, so even Wikipedia, John of Giscala, during the Jewish war with Rome, John vied with Josephus over control of Galilee and amassed a large band of supporters from Giscala as a part of the Roman campaign to put down the revolt in Judea. Titus marched on Gush Halav, called Giscala by the Romans. Giscala was the last town in Galilee not yet conquered. Outside the walls of the city, he called on them to surrender. John prevailed upon Titus not to enter the city that day, as it was the Sabbath, not so much out of regard to the seventh day as to his own preservation. John fled to Jerusalem that night, and Titus was greatly displeased that he had not been able to bring this John, who had deluded him, to punishment. Anyway, it goes on, but he definitely had a large role in what was going on here.
He's the guy. He's the guy who takes over after Ananas and the Jesus Joseph guy are gone. Or Joshua guy, sorry. Jesus Joshua guy were out the way. Once they were both dead because the Idumeans came in because they got duped into killing him, basically. Yeah. Then it was literally just that guy. And that's when you would know that the son of Perdition was revealed. You'd be like, oh, there he is. Like the last two dudes that were standing for the true thing. If you were of the truth, just like those guys, you would see like, oh, well, those were our only two dudes, and now they're freaking dead. Time to get out of Dodge. Right? Before the wall is built, which is coming soon to a town near you. I don't know. To me, that's the most cohesive story. It makes the most sense to me. If you can come up with two better guys, by all means. Or, three, because it's the two witnesses and the son of Perdition as a package. You need all three at the same time, right? Surely I didn't put you all to sleep.
Now I'm reading the Praetorist archive now on this subject. Man of sin.
What do they say?
I haven't found, I'm just kind of scrolling through here.
Gotcha.
Just came to this recently,
Okay.
so like I'm not like super attached to it. I just came to this recently, so like I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure this is correct. It makes the most sense so far of anything that I've ever heard on the entire subject, even including all the things that I used to think about it. Like once upon a time, I thought it was maybe just representing the law and the prophets, but like there's certain terminology and words in there where it's just like,
So
Like-
why didn't he mention the resurrection?
exactly. It didn't mention the resurrection, but it does say that they ascended into the clouds or something like that. It does say some sort of they got
No,
res.
why did
some-
Josephus mention it?
Exactly. That's a good question to ask. I'll let you answer.
Yeah. Preterist Archive says John of Giscala.
John of Giscala is the son, he's the man of sin. There really is like no other choice. It has to be him. It's literally right before the destruction. That makes the most sense from a full preterist's perspective, at least. Let's put it that way.
I mean, seeing them resurrect, would you think that'd be a pretty big deal?
You would think so, unless they didn't literally just like be like Shazam, haha. Like, what is it really saying there when it says that? That's all I'm
Yeah.
asking. What is it really trying to say to you? It's saying that those offices got called back to God. Like, what is it saying? Because the story like you have to read the article that I linked, because if you don't read that, you won't understand what I'm talking about. But it's talking about like this had been like the Two Witnesses program had been in existence for a while, and like that was the program, but that program was about to be taken away. And so now that these are the final two witnesses, because this whole two witness thing, like she says, like Sandy said, like the Elisha, that's two, right? Same kind of difference, two witnesses. The whole way through, there's these offices, if you will. I don't know. You have to read the article that I linked in the Discord.
Everybody's pretty quiet tonight. Usually you
Because
can't get a word in edgewise.
Because I'm dropping knowledge bombs, which may or may not be radioactive. I'm not sure.
So what are they doing watching Seinfeld?
Yeah, probably. Zach is.
Well, the real question
Everybody's
is,
doing too much thinking now. They're not talking so much. Silence them efficiently.
I'm just in and out of sleep, so.
Oh well, I keep waking you up effectively. That's what's happening.
Albert the nose doze.
I'm keeping you awake just enough.
Oh, I'm not thinking.
You need to be awake just enough to hear my good points, but then you need to sleep and not hear my bad points.
Sounds like a good plan there for you.
Yeah, well, I already knew you were tired.
Where's Sandy?
She said she'll be here later, maybe.
She should have finished that spaghetti by now.
No, she said she's got stuff to do, I think.
ooh, spaghetti sounds dank.
You can't have spaghetti on keto, can you? What?
I wish.
Spaghetti squash, maybe.
Yes, it's squash spaghetti.
Couldn't you have zucchini?
Yeah, you can have that.
Can't you have like brown rice spaghetti?
The rice might kill it, but maybe if it was a small portion of rice. But on a separate note, Stacy and Lori, I'm recalling from my notes here, you guys were in one previous video. You guys were trying to remember what the name of that thing was, where like vibrations like form patterns, and you couldn't remember what it was called.
Cynetics.
Yes, now you know what it is. It's cymatics. Correct. Now you remember.
I don't remember that.
Yeah, it's called, I remember writing both your names.
What is it
I remember
called?
talking about it, but it's cymatics.
What is it called?
Cymatics.
Oh, okay. Sounds like Dianetics. That's the,
It's pretty cool stuff because you've seen it. It's like they take a metal plate and they put sand on it and they vibrate it at a frequency and it makes patterns. And like if you shift the frequency, like it just whoop, the picture changes like immediately. It's pretty freaking cool.
Yeah, it's on YouTube. Why don't you post a video?
So I don't know.
There's one frequency that actually does the Star of David.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
Is
like,
that the 666 frequency?
It is.
I was telling Albert earlier, I pulled behind an ambulance today and it had the phone number was like 402-347-6666.
Well, you want
like,
what my number is?
Don't tell me it's 666. That's it.
I used to live a few blocks away from a Roman Catholic church on a street named Alban Avenue, and the number of the church 666 Alban Avenue, Our Lady of Grace.
And that was the Catholic Church?
Yeah.
I think they would
Wow.
change that.
My phone number is 649-6666.
Oh my! Why didn't you change
Your
that?
phone number was on the back of that ambulance today? Well, it's two
I've
sixes.
had people offer to buy my phone number.
It's not like at least it's not like 4666. It's
People comment
6666.
about it all the time. I always say it's 4, not 3.
Right.
How much are they offering to buy it for me for?
$666.
They never said an amount. They just said I would really like that to have that phone number. Like for a business.
Yeah, no, I guess the 666 part is easy to remember.
So it's 649. It's almost like 6 sixes.
Yeah.
Have you guys ever seen the church that's in Manhattan called St. John the Divine?
I think Albert posted something about that a while back, didn't you, Albert?
I think I have.
The one with
What's the question?
the gargoyles on it or whatever.
Wait, the gargoyles. What are you talking about?
Yeah. I went there to visit it once. It is freaky.
Where? What did you say? I didn't hear.
It's in Manhattan. It's called St. John the Divine, and
Oh,
it's
the church.
very old church. It's got like gargoyles and all kinds of like
How old? How old?
medieval stuff. I don't know.
Yeah.
When it was
What are
built.
the
It was never
gargoyles for?
100% finished.
What are the gargoyles?
I don't
No,
know,
you know
but
why?
it's got-
Do the gargoyles come alive at night?
No, do you
I'll tell
know
you what
why
it's
there
got.
are why are there gargoyles?
To chase away evil spirits.
Yeah, birds. It's just to scare away birds so that they don't poop on the church.
Or the gargoyles come alive at night and fight crime?
I think they do, but the church is really kind of freaky, and it has weird statues all over, and it has like carvings in the side of the building that appear to be like a city falling apart.
Oh yeah, dude,
Like-
I love that.
Yeah, I've
It
seen
looks
that.
like-
Oh, like 9/11.
Looks like a prophecy of 9/11 carved into the building.
That it does.
And then it's got a picture of it going underwater.
Like a tidal wave.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Did
like,
we
yo,
watch
that's-
enough conspiracy videos or what, eh?
That's
Right.
that's all I have to say is you can't prove to me that is ancient carving. Like that looks new to me, and it looks like you just made that, and
I
don't
thought it
buy
was
it
a
it.
new
was born.
church. It is a new church, I thought.
Guess when it was
It
erected?
doesn't. No, but see, here's the thing. It could be an old church, but it's a new addition to the old church. You see what I'm saying? So like, you can't get away with be like, oh yeah, this was part of the whole thing from the beginning. No, it wasn't. You just put that on top of there. That was not there before. So you show me when it was constructed that those things were there, and I'd be like, all right.
666 AD.
I think
But
that
then,
that
911
carving
is when it
was
was constructed.
911 AD.
No,
It's in New York,
1911.
right?
1911, yeah.
Oh, 1911. Okay.
the church you're talking about, right?
Yeah.
But I think that carving was commissioned back in the 1980s.
Before 9/11.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing to it.
Well, the Simpsons have been forecasting that for years.
Right, and nothing to that either.
The what?
Just
Chaz?
all coincidence.
The Simpsons.
But they knew Trump was going to be president.
who do you think
Sandy
picked?
Oh,
said it's pretty
I'm just
freaky.
wondering who Lisa Simpson's going to be, because she's president too, right? I hope it's not AOC.
No,
Yeah,
it'll
no.
be
See,
Trump's
like,
daughter.
I think, come on, doesn't God pick the presidents, right?
True.
I mean, if he picked Nebuchadnezzar and he picked Cyrus and he picked all these other dudes before he even showed up, and now he's gonna pick, like, I think he's been picking them the whole time. So who do you think made Trump win? God. Who else can make Donald Trump win?
What scripture is
I mean,
that
come
says he appoints the presidents or kings or whatever? It's in the New Testament, isn't it?
Yeah, I
I
just
feel
think I
like
don't know.
Romans 13, maybe. I could be
It's
wrong.
hilarious.
Though.
I think it's gonna be hilarious when he wins again. That's just gonna be even more hilarious.
You think he's gonna win again?
Of course he's going to win again because it's going to be hilarious. There's nothing more funny than re-electing a president that got impeached. That's hilarious.
That church looks to me like it's more than 100 years old.
Oh, you're looking at the divine?
Yeah, it's not old. What did you say it was old? What'd you
I
say?
said it looks
No,
to me like it's more than 100.
Okay, yeah,
Oh, yeah,
more than
it's old.
100, but it's not like when was it built?
What's the church called?
Saint John the Divine.
When was the church built? Because that's the thing. Like if
They're
that
saying
was if
1911.
that was an inscription that was done, if that whole work was done,
Let me ask you this. That is
you
a
can show
Catholic
up.
church, correct?
What's
You
that?
can,
That
yeah.
is
I
a
can't
Catholic
hear
church. So what do they say? What body part of what saint is there in their foundation?
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah, don't
His
they
name is
say somebody's
Lucifer.
there?
The
Isn't
church
it
is
his
beautiful.
head or
though.
something?
What's that?
Who's got his head?
That's in somewhere around Ephesus or somewhere around there, I think, or Turkey or somewhere.
Is that true that the churches bury some part of the body
Yeah.
of the
Yes.
Benedicts?
Yes.
They do
I
that.
never heard that before.
Oh yeah, man, they've done that. They
Veneration
take
of
the
dead.
You know what I find interesting is that they don't have any construction videos or any construction pictures.
well that is a fun thing, but don't get lost in the mud flood stuff.
What?
Yeah, they don't have any pictures. Like there's certain buildings. I agree. It's like,
I
wait,
mean, the
did they
camera
really
would have
build
been.
these?
The
Did
camera
they
was out
really
by
build
then.
these recently? No, I don't.
I got
I think
pictures of
some
my
of them they might
great-
be full of ish on. They might be
I've-
making it up.
I've got
Yeah,
pictures
that
of
is
my
a good
great
point.
grandfather from 1913. So
Right, yeah, the camera was definitely around then. It is kind of weird.
absolutely. That would have been a pretty big undertaking. I just find it interesting that they don't have any pictures.
Right, and they should if it was built recently. But if it was built long ago. But here's the thing: you can add on to the old church. You can be like, oh yeah, this is a church that was built in 70 AD, but
No, because it talks about.
We won't tell you that we just recently added this pristine part right over here, which is so
No, 'cause
polished that it looks like we cleaned it, but
Well, then they're lying because they said that they had to pick out the lot where it was going to go and all that crap.
well, they could do that. I'm just saying, like, what is with all this new imagery on the church? Like, why is there tsunamis and 9/11 buildings on it? Like,
Well, Stacy
that's
said that was
obviously
in the
not an old
80s.
thing. It's been there
Yeah.
since before.
Yeah, Stacy
Or it's
said
been
that
there
was an
shortly after.
addition.
That's all I'm saying is they added it after the fact.
After 9/11?
Either shortly before or after. Either way, they added it recently.
Well, those are your only two choices, so you're pretty much
Doesn't
spot
really
on
matter.
there.
My point is, it's not ancient. So like, it's
Point is,
they
you're
didn't,
yelling,
like,
Albert.
predict it. They didn't predict it like thousands of years ago or anything, or hundreds of years ago. They were like, oh, look, like we built this in 1412. Look, we got you correct 100%. You know what I'm saying? It's a new addition, which means they added it for whatever reason. Now, why would they add that?
Albert drank a monster before the hangout.
No shit.
All right, I'll be quiet. Silence.
Just stop
No
yelling
worries.
at us.
Oh, sorry, I don't need to yell.
It's all
it's
your
all good.
fault.
We never hear from you, so this is good.
Right. I'm letting them go with it.
He's getting all his talking in now.
It really
think
is.
it's
It's all or nothing
Gets
with
on the
Albert.
hangout. I think he usually gets on the hangout and then he plays games. Is that what you do, Albert?
No.
No,
Like,
that sounded like I don't know.
No, I play games on Saturday is a raid night. So at the moment, but that might change because there's more raid content coming out soon. So it's either gonna be Sunday or Monday. So if it's Monday, you guys are gonna.
Are we taking the second rate then, or what?
Yeah, I'm gonna have to raid over you guys. Sorry.
You guys are gonna collect some cool loot, dude.
Yeah, dude. I already got my best item off that dragon that I slayed. If you saw the picture.
You're like
Should we move it to
12 or
Sunday
something.
night?
No, I mean we
Is
could.
that
I
what
would figure
we're
something
clearing,
out.
buddy?
I would obviously work it out, but no, I voted for us to raid on Sunday, so don't worry. Hopefully, we're winning at the moment. Let's keep it that way.
Who, you and your game or us?
No, me and my guildies, the people in my guild, just like you're kind of like my guild over here. You're a guild of Christian believers or whatever you want to call it. This is like a guild of gamers, like it's a group of people, right? Same difference. I'm sorry, I like to play video games where I slay dragons and stuff. My bad.
Not necessarily, I guess.
Wait a minute. Dragons don't exist.
Yes, they do in this world. No, dragons, really, seriously, dragons, I think dragons actually do exist, except they're small now. Like, they're just really, like, when you see, like, an anole or, like, a monitor lizard.
Wait a minute.
Gila monster.
So where do we find the small Satan at?
Have you ever seen a Gila monster?
Lori,
Yes.
in general tab, I think I posted a construction video, a construction photo of St. John the Divine for you.
Nice.
Let me take a look.
But have you seen a Gila monster? Do you even know what a Gila monster is? That's what I thought. See, a Gila monster is a very deadly lizard. It's kind of biggish, but like not super huge. But if it bites you, you're probably gonna die. That, in my opinion, is a dragon. And especially if you want to take it before Noah's Day and you want to blow it up so it's like much huger, gets much more ginormous, that to me is a dragon. That's where all this dragon stuff comes from. Maybe.
I think that
I mean-
mud flood stuff is pretty interesting.
Yo, it is. But like, I think again, if there was anything to this mud flood, it has to be the flood. Like Noah's flood or a subsequent flood that just like, because Russia gets hit by these mud floods all the time. That's like a lot of where some of these things are coming from. And but that's why
No,
that's
they're all
why
over the
the
states and
Nazis
everything.
That's why the Nazis and the Germans, whatever, they got stopped. They got screwed because it started raining and snowing, and everything got all muddy, and the stuff started sinking in the mud. Like, it was terrible. It's a really trash place to live, pretty much.
Yeah, but it's all over the States too. It's not just Europe or.
Yeah, but I think those people take it a little bit too far. Like, they just
No, I
literally
just think it's
take
interesting.
like any video.
I'm not talking about their theories. I'm talking about the actual pictures of them and
Of the old
all
buildings.
those, holy
yeah.
frick! I mean,
Yeah.
you don't
Of the
see
old
anything like
buildings,
that. Huh?
Yeah, maybe of the old buildings, but like.
Well, that's what I'm talking about. The ones that they dismantled when they were
Yeah,
only
like
20 years
the
old.
mansions. Yeah, like
Yeah.
the mansions. It's like, oh, it's a mansion. They just built it supposedly in this year, such and such year they built it, but then they're gonna take it down like 10 years later. Like, oh, what? you're gonna spend this much money building it just to remove it like 5-10 years later? That makes no sense. I agree. Those ones are shady.
There's definitely something weird there.
Yeah, there's something weird there. But what is it? That's what we can't put our finger on.
I think it's free electrical.
It could totally be, because like I said, like I've been saying, I think that the ancients, ones before the flood rather, they had a way of generating electricity which is not the way we're doing it. They had a different way of doing it, and it used stones. Somehow.
Well, they even, I mean, you know that you can, light a light bulb from a tree. So they were definitely getting free energy from somewhere. And then they all had those things in front of their fireplaces, which didn't burn wood.
Yeah, I agree with you. Like, why would you put your most like specialist painting right above a fire? That's a great idea.
Yeah.
This is not a fireplace. This is something else. It's disguised as a fireplace.
Yeah. What was it?
It's some sort of device.
Yeah, they had devices in front of all these old fireplaces in all these mansions that were taken down in New York.
Yeah, obviously the device isn't going to function if you take away its key functioning elements. Like if it had some rods in front of it or some like towers of metal or whatever.
I'll see if I can find a couple pictures.
Yeah. But either way, it's like, all right, would you really, if you had a nice painting, would you put it right above the fireplace? Does that really make sense? Isn't your painting going to get ruined? Because the smoke and all that, like, it's going to get wrecked. All the heat coming up, doesn't seem like a good idea to me. That's because it was never a fireplace in the first place. And there's never in any of these instances any evidence of any ash ever being burned there. Like it's not a fireplace.
So then what do they think they did there?
They think it was some sort of electrical generating type dealy apparatus where
all these mansions had these things coming off the top of them.
Yeah, all these like kind of pokey things coming off the roofs of the buildings. They're like energy gatherers or like electrical gatherers.
Mm-hmm.
I just saw an article that my friend linked me. It said that like this one stone area, it's like a bunch of standing stones and stuff like that, kind of like Stonehenge, but like in like grid like lines and stuff.
And all of these mansions were only 20 years old when they took them all down. That's what they're claiming.
Yeah,
it is a lie.
And so they say that they might have been made to harness electrical activity,
like a Tesla kind of thing.
Yeah, kind of. Except it would harness the electricity rather than just like crap it out like a Tesla coil would. Tesla coil's like with the electricity. Yeah, just imagine if you could like harness it in the reverse way, like a reverse Tesla coil.
It was called the Gilded Age.
But see, I think those mudflood people take it too far. They're like, just not that long ago, like everything got wrecked. It's like, oh, did it now?
Yeah.
Is that why we're so stupid and we don't have cell phones yet?
But is it? I mean, how could it be possible that something like that would be from the flood?
Yeah, it's like, all right.
It was
from
all
the flood of Noah?
Everything was petrified, though. You could see.
Yeah.
Like I mean, even the windowsills and everything were stone.
Yeah, I agree. They were 100% changed to stone. Like everything got changed to stone because it all got covered in mud, and the mud turned to rock, and then there you go. Everything is turned to stone. See, it's a funny for me because it's like, why did they call it the Stone Age? It's not because they made everything out of stone themselves, it's that everything got turned to stone.
Yeah. Yeah. I just thought it was pretty fascinating stuff myself.
No, me too. I think it's very fascinating. I love looking into that stuff because I love pre-flood world. I love looking into all that kind of weird jazz.
Yeah. But the mansions, I don't know.
Yeah, it's really cool. If we only had a couple $1 million, we could buy one, right? We could find out for ourselves. Right?
20 years to build them, and yeah, somebody's full of shit.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense to be like, oh, it took 20 years to build it, and then we're just gonna knock it down like 5 years after it. But that's what happened with some of these mansions. It was called Millionaires Row, but isn't it called like Billionaires Row now?
It would have been, yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't expect a lot of stuff to survive from the pre-flood world, but an entire mansion, like unturned to stone? No, this had to be something that they did after the fact, don't you think? Unless there was no mud flood. See, because if there was no mud involved, nothing got buried. It was just water. Well, no harm, no foul. Now you can have some building still standing 2,000 years later. It's fine. And that's the thing. Like it varies over the whole Earth. So like nobody's ever going to figure that out. But I mean, I don't know if you saw on the one channel, like, did you see those videos I posted of like all those ruins that I think are like just smashed like houses and stuff? Like they're just covered in mud and they turn to stone. They're just like mangled and smashed.
Did you? You posted that?
Uh-huh.
I don't remember that.
It's in one of the channels. I'll have to look at it. I don't think it's under like Nephilims or anything. I think it's under something else. Oh, it's under the flood of Noah. If you look at, there's not that much stuff on the flood of Noah page, but if you watch all the stuff I posted there, you might be like, oh my gosh, like I see it. Like you'll see, like, have you ever seen the city of Petra? It does look like it could be carved out after the fact, but at the same time, it also looks like it might have once upon a time been just a regular city and it was just chilling there, and then it got completely encased and turned into rock. You know, like if you dig into the mountain more, there's more. Like there's some of these like Cappadocia, if you've ever seen that place. There's like these famous places in Cappadocia where there's all these little puncture holes. They're like, oh yeah, the peoples, they came and they punctured all these holes all over the place and they made all these caves. And that's where they lived. It's like, really? So you're going to tell me that this guy's house was like all the way up here? And like he went up here and he was like, yeah, that's where I just chill all the time, just like 500 feet in the sky on this really precarious rock. Like, it's ridiculous. Like, no way. No. To me, it seems like it was once upon a time a structure from the pre-flood, some sort of building, whatever, and it got wrecked, like completely annihilated, and now it's exposed, but you're seeing the remnant of it. So when you see like a random carved window or door, as it were, it's like, no, that's just where a natural hole was from the item that it buried. You see what I'm saying? And now it's exposed. It's breaking away. It's flaked it away. You can keep going throughout the whole mountain, and it would probably be an entire covered city or something like that, like tons of buildings. Like their whole thing is nothing but a buried city. That's why there's a mountain there. Because there's a city underneath it. It is a city. It's good because if you had a flood and you had lots of mud flow. Don't you think all the mud would accumulate across all the buildings if it was rapid flow enough? And eventually they would get overtaken and encased. And then over time they would erode and break away, so you would have natural cavities forming. Those were just natural spaces that were already there. Same as if my entire house got buried by a flood today. Where I'm standing right now would probably still be, there would be a cavity here. Some part of the wall broke away. Well, now you have a hole.
So they had Millionaires Row. They had these mansions in many of the cities. It's quite interesting to me. Cleveland, New York, Buffalo.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All over. There was many of them.
And they were built in, what were they claiming? 1916.
Yeah, early 1800s, 1900s, early 1900s, even up to, the 60s, I think.
And then 20 years later, they destroyed them. Yeah, okay, makes sense.
Yeah, some of them were destroyed even faster, like 5 years or 10 years after. It's like, what? Why would you? It's like, why are you gonna buy it and then destroy it? Like, oh, because I want. Like, no, this is no, making no sense. But yeah, do you see that? Like, you don't even have to watch the videos. Do you see what I'm talking about on that channel? If you
I haven't looked at it yet.
Oh, I'm just saying, if you scroll up, you'll see 2 videos I linked in a row, and you can see the thumbnails of the videos, and you can see the ruins like right there, and like a couple of them all together. And if you just look at it, you might be like, oh, I can see how this kind of looks like a super smashed building, because that's what I would expect. It was smashed under thousands of pounds of water for at least almost a year. So not only did it get flooded and encased in all this schmutz, but it got smushed under the ocean for about a year, and then it finally went away. So massive pressure.
Are you talking about the Wise Up channel?
I'm just talking about any channel that. Sure, no, Wise Up is my favorite of them, but I looked at the other ones too.
Yeah. Are you talking about this pictures here on William Talbot, Ancient Buildings?
Yeah, there's 2 of them. There's only
okay.
yeah. Mm-hmm. Who did I scare away? No, it was
Sandy.
Oh, really? Wow. She was here already? Wait, no,
she's here now. She said, ha, ha, ha.
It was Zach. She's not even here.
You sure?
It was Zach left. Yeah.
Okay, well, I heard a woman laugh.
Nobody laughed. It was me. I'm not a woman.
I swear to you, I heard a woman laugh.
The mind plays tricks on you.
I guess.
But what were we talking about just now? Yeah.
Just these videos.
Whose videos? Yeah, those videos right there on the Flood of Noah channel. There should be 2 of them back to back, and you should see like a bunch of what seems like ancient ruins or smashed buildings that are encased in rock.
Yeah.
Just look at them like they're smashed buildings, and then tell me if they don't seem like they're smashed buildings covered in rock.
Yeah, I've looked at those things a few times.
I mean, like, how hard is it? Like think about concrete. What is concrete? Concrete is you taking some materials, mixing them together with some water, and then voila, you get a rock, right? Same difference here, except now, instead of getting one kind of rock, because of the materials you used, you have multiple different kinds of rock. So depending on where you are, you're going to get different things encased in different kinds of stone, depending on the materials that the flood swept up in that area. And of course, did I mention everything got smashed?
Yeah.
And then you would have had no doubt all sorts of, like, I don't have any doubt that all kinds of natural disasters were going off at the time of the flood. You would have had, flash floods. You would have had flash freezes. You would have had snowstorms out of nowhere. You would have had. That's how I believe that the mastodons and whatnot that they find, they're still eating grass. They're still like in a standing up position. They still got all their hair on them. Yeah, the only way that could happen is like literally if one day they were just like chilling in the grasslands, eating some grass like a normal elephant with hair, and then like 45 seconds later, it gets super frosty, and all of a sudden this giant wave of whatever comes and it just encases you in just like a blanket of snow or ice or whatever, water, and it freezes immediately. Like there's only so many ways it can happen. You have to be immediately frozen, flash frozen. And to me, there's only one way you can do that, and that's to wreck the entire Earth's climate system by the flood. The flood would do that. It would cool everything down, and you would have mass quantities of ice everywhere, aka the Ice Age. Think about it. It all makes sense to me. I mean, but if you guys are getting put to sleep by this, we can talk about something else.
What do you think, Stacy?
I'm just here.
That is not helpful.
Did your serenity prayer help, Stacy?
She liked it, Cindy.
I thought it was a prayer that you were praying or something.
No, she never heard it before. I don't think the way that he said it.
She had heard it before, but the way she was talking, it seemed like she needed to read it again, so I posted it for her.
Gotcha.
I feel like it happens with all of us, but sometimes you gotta be sure to read all the replies that you get if we're on the Discord, because sometimes the responses can be like rapid fire, and like it's real easy to miss something. Because I did notice earlier she did do that. Like I linked a verse, and then later she was like, "Oh, but this verse, yeah, I linked that like 5 minutes ago."
I've learned when it lights up like that, not even to respond until after it gets silent a little bit, because you're just lost in the noise.
Oh yeah, you get it's too many replies too quickly. It lets you get lost real quick. But anyway, I turn it over to you guys. You figure out what you want to talk about. I've said enough.
Man, that church is unbelievable.
Still looking at that thing?
Yeah.
It really is incredible in person. You said you went there?
Yeah, I was there 5 days before the towers came down.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Well, then I guess that means that it was there before the towers went down.
It's in kind of a weird part of New York City that's not real busy. Kind of odd, because the whole city is like always busy.
Can we say foreshadowing? They're like letting you know, but not letting you know. It's like, oh, we'll put it here, and if anybody notices, they'll be like, "Huh, why is that building getting an?"
Anybody check out what's happening in California these days?
No. What is happening?
It started a long time ago. It's becoming the state of homelessness.
Oh yeah, I heard about the homelessness. Yeah, but it's also the state on fire.
Yeah. It's like somebody wants this state
gone
and empty.
I heard they shut down a homeless tent shelter somewhere. Was that in California?
Yeah, they keep doing that. They move them somewhere else. And
okay, what was the map on some type of Survivor show or something in the future? Remember that American map?
Yeah, the future America, where like
the southeast was like the agricultural part, and like Colorado or something had the Illuminati airport. What did California look like?
Denver. It was underwater. Or was it an island?
What was that? The Survivor Games or something like that?
I don't remember.
Why would they build a church like that?
Because you need to control the people.
No, I mean the picture that Stacy sent me.
Yeah, why would you put that on the church? Well, it
No,
does
no.
incorporate what?
Why I just can't see you building a building like that. There's just the front of the church. That's it. And I'm trying to find it on the church and I can't seem to find it. Or on the side.
But you said you were there at the church, right?
Yeah.
You actually at it. You saw this thing in the physical person, right?
Yeah, but I'm trying to figure out.
Well, they may have built on top of that, so that might be now internalized.
It could be.
It's a possibility.
I'm just wondering why you would build. I guess whatever. Yeah.
Why would they put that on the side of the church?
No.
No, that's not your question.
I'm just thinking out loud, you guys.
I just don't understand your why. Why what? Why would they put that there? Why would they? What?
Why would you build the church in the manner that they're building it?
Why would they build the entire church the way that they built it?
Well, they're saying this is a vintage photo.
Right. We didn't have photos until. No, I'm with you. Hey, maybe this church was already there, and they were like, "Yeah, we built this in 1847." It's like, it was already there in 1847. No, you didn't. And then it's like, oh, okay, we built it in 1745. Nope.
Well, they built all of these mansions when they claimed we did have photography then.
It was already there. You did not build that.
Have one construction picture of any of these mansions.
That's why Obama said you didn't build that. Remember? He said you didn't build that.
He said what?
Remember Obama? He said you didn't, like, type in YouTube, Obama, you didn't build that. You'll find it.
And what was that in reference to?
Just, I'm recalling it for a reason. What does he mean by you didn't build that? Does he mean that, like, like, it wasn't, you didn't build that infrastructure, so, like, what is he really talking? What is he really talking? What if he meant, like, you didn't really build that? Like, okay, so certain things you didn't build. The churches. I mean, why is it always churches that have these ridiculous architectures? Yeah. Good question, right? Why? It's like, oh, but the churches, they're so poor, we have to start to do all this. But they always have these ridiculous buildings. Like, what? You don't just make these buildings because you have, like, a couple thousand laying around or something. But I do think they're all still made out of concrete.
Or what?
Artificial stone. They're not actually carving them out. They're not like, let's hew this, like, we're going to cut this out of the mountainside and chisel it. Like, no, this is all poured concrete. They're all concrete. I don't think many things are carved at all. Yes, you can carve it, but, like, that's highly inefficient, and if you do it that way, you're being stupid.
Unless they had some kind of knowledge that we don't have.
Yeah, that's a possibility.
They used the magic ring of Solomon, and they had big demons build it for them.
See, but now what does that mean? If that's a true story, let's pretend it is. Solomon had this magic power to be able to move stones. Or did he really have the power to move stones, or did he just know the secret of making your own stones? And the ring is just whatever, part of this, just so you can make it an object or something, I don't know. I mean, he built the temple. It's pretty impressive. And why is it Solomon? Why is it not David? Think about these things. Like, why? Why does it say that? Why is Solomon the one that controls the demons? What is meant by demons? That's all I'm saying. But seriously, quiet people on the panel. What the heck? Talk. Say something. Interrupt me.
It's tough. It's tough, Albert.
I need to be interrupted at all times. There's nothing I hate more than dead air. Oh my God.
Really?
I have to fill it with nonsense. If nobody's going to talk, I have to talk nonsense. There's nothing worse than when you're listening to one of the videos back in like retrospect and you're like, oh my God, we're just silent for like 5.5 minutes. Like, what are we doing?
Does silence make you uncomfortable?
Yes. No, we have to, for the sake of the listeners.
Oh, listeners.
All 12 of them. Because there's not that many.
Just tell them, you know what, this is not a great night. We're not doing that great tonight. And you know what, everybody has an off night.
Now this is going to get like 50 views and be like, this is the greatest hangout you guys ever had.
All conspiracy theorists.
I planted the seed.
Oh, that was good, Albert. That was good.
I'm a seed planter, and that's what I do. I'm a harvester.
Goes down as the greatest speech ever by Albert.
Oh, dear. I hope not.
Did you have Bible study today, Stacy?
It was a women's Bible study. We were in John 8 with the adulterous woman, and I was surprised. The pastor actually did it. We're all sort of nominated to do it, different months. And so in March, I've got to do it. And the topic is Bathsheba. So I get to talk about Bathsheba. But anyway, I was surprised he had mentioned that in the discipline of textual criticism that people believe that that section of the Gospel of John doesn't really belong there, and they found it in Luke manuscripts before, and the earlier John manuscripts doesn't have it. But the consensus was that it was inspired anyway.
Does it have the information anywhere else, or just that one spot?
Well, the thing is those 12 verses, the last verse of chapter 7 and the first 11 of chapter 8, have vocabulary words that are not found in the rest of the entire gospel. It's like 14 different vocabulary words that are not found anywhere else in that entire work. And so that alone should tell you that whoever wrote the Gospel of John most likely didn't use, since he didn't use those words elsewhere, that's pretty good evidence. And the fact that in the early manuscripts of John, it's not there, but it is in some places they have it in later Luke, other places they have it in earlier Luke. So obviously when the scribes were putting together and compiling it, they thought, well, this should belong here or something, but he really, he had mentioned that, let's see how he put it. He was asking our opinion on does it matter? And everybody was pretty much saying, no, it doesn't matter. But then I had mentioned it only matters if you're looking at the Gospel of John in a thematic way, because then you would probably want to eliminate that section and not look at it, because the theme of John was that Jesus was sent as a sign and bearing witness and those type things. And so he completely agreed that, if it's a thematic study, that section probably doesn't belong in your study. But so I was volunteered to do Bathsheba in March, and I'm wondering how to do that. It's funny. I was thinking about this today. I don't know if I can work this out, but if David is the foreshadow or type of Christ, and his bride is the church, or David's bride was Bathsheba, but Bathsheba was married to another, and that one had to die. And then you've got Paul in Romans talking about, if a woman is married to another husband, that husband has to die before she can remarry, type thing. I don't know if I can really work that out in a symbolic way, but there might be something there. I'll have to think about it.
No, there is. There's in the age to come, they will no longer marry nor given, the whole thing like that. That's what that's talking about. In the New John, they're not going to give in marriage and do all this stuff, because there is the inheritance is not dependent upon all that. So that's why they're asking the question. They're asking Jesus, like, so this dude and 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 this dude, they all had this chick as his wife, like, because of the law, because you got to raise up the seed for your dude. But this happened 7 times, so like in the resurrection, whose wife is she going to be? Is what they asked her. The answer is none of you. Like, she's not gonna. The answer is it doesn't matter anymore. Think about it. They no longer do that. They no longer give in marriage and are doing all taking.
Do you guys have any?
They don't do this old law stuff. Go ahead.
If you guys have any insights on Bathsheba in the next couple of weeks, please let me know.
Will do. I read something interesting.
2 Samuel chapter 11, I think, is where it starts. And I'm not sure if there's other passages that talk about Bathsheba or the variation of her spelling, but no.
I think I posted the link, but it was talking about how many times the Septuagint is quoted in the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
And it said it was quoted like 341 times, but it said that the Masoretic text was also quoted 43 times. So I thought that was, you think it would be like,
well,
you would think there wouldn't be like
it's also
a division.
It's also how you count it, because sometimes what they would do is, if the Masoretic text and the Septuagint are different from one another, you obviously know what that was, and so they would have to go with the Septuagint in that aspect. But because sometimes the Masoretic text and the Septuagint are the same, and in those instances, when it's a quote, what they would do is they would count that for the Masoretic text.
Well, yeah, but if they did that, then why did the Septuagint have 341 and the Masoretic only had 43? You know what I mean? I think they were counting it like when there was only one option type thing, is what I think, but I don't know for sure. Might try that olive tree app for that Bathsheba thing. Might have something, I'm not sure. But I'll look too.
Okay. I think it's Bathsheba and what is it, Bathshua? Or what was the other name?
Beersheba, maybe?
Beersheba.
Maybe it could be like I don't know. That's because who did David marry? Just her?
No, he had several other wives. He had one wife that Saul sort of forced upon him,
But he
but
ditched her.
she ended up loving him. That was his first
Didn't
wife.
he end up ditching her?
No, he ran away, and but I think later caught back up with her.
Or he sent for her or something. I was trying to remember.
And then there was the woman who was married to the fool. Whatever his name is, it means fool, but I don't remember what it was.
Mm-hmm.
And he married her. So he had several wives.
Two concubines going hanging around.
Mm-hmm. Which doesn't really go good for him being a type of Christ unless these wives are like denominations.
I could see people supporting that for Christ having wives now. David had wives, so then Christ must have had wives. I've seen that before on headline news.
Solomon had how many wives exactly? And apparently he was totally fine. The only fault that he had was what? It was that he was going after, aka strange flesh. Same thing Sodom and Gomorrah were doing. They were going after false gods. That's your strange flesh.
But he wasn't really condemned for it.
Exactly. This is after Sodom and Gomorrah. So.
No, strange flesh meant like
The whole issue was that they were going to join themselves with some other place. Which, no,
I was
listen.
gonna say
you
opposite
started
sex.
They were going to
but
join
I wasn't
themselves.
gonna
They
go
were
there, Stacy.
You started him up again.
Wait, what?
I was gonna say opposite sex.
No. It's because they were going after other religions and other gods. That's why. That like when it says you fornicator, like it's not talking about actual fornication most of the time. It's talking about not being with God. Like you're cheating on him. That's what it's talking about. Yeah, I agree that it's bad. You shouldn't do actual adultery, but most of the time I don't think that's what it's talking about. What are the first two commandments? On the 10?
No other gods, no idols.
And what did they do most of the time? Like all the time, all day, every day? Exactly. Sodom and Gomorrah.
Those were two witnesses as well.
That's true, but there was actually 3 more cities on the list. It was Sodom, Gomorrah, and the cities around them in like manner. At least 3 more are mentioned.
Well, I mean, the two guys that went down into Sodom.
Well, that's true too. Not only did 2 guys go down there, and they did that, but also 2 or 3, the third being the angel of the Lord himself.
Well, he stayed with Abraham.
Yes, he stayed with Abraham while the other two went, but then after he was done with Abraham, he said he was going to go down and check it out himself. And then he said, yeah, sure. Like, if I find this, I won't do that. Sure. But we already knew, us, but he definitely didn't find that. And so, like, it was going to go down. They were going to get nuked, or whatever you want to call it, burned to the ground. All 5 cities, at least, if not more. All the cities of the plain. Not just Sodom and Gomorrah. Key point there. For certain people.
Do you hear any more for your interviews, Rob?
Yeah, I had the interview today, so went well. So they said I should know something within a week. They said they had a couple other candidates, so went well. I was telling Albert that I had 222 come up 3 times today. It came up. I got $2.22 a change. I got $222 balance at the bank, not in my bank, but at a bank. And then when I was sitting waiting at the for my interview, individuals to come out to interview me, one person predicted that, or one company predicted that Tesla was going to go to 615. The other predicted they were going to go to 222, and they're currently at like 500 something. So I took it as a good indicator. So, like I said, the interview went well. So hopefully, be good news next week, I hope. Lord willing.
Lord willing.
Indeed.
Are you superstitious, Rob?
No, he's numerologist.
Right.
Numerstitious.
I think God's into numbers.
For sure.
By the way, Stacy, private message me your address again so I can send you Frank's book.
Okay.
Frank who?
Frank Spirit. Yeah, I'm gonna send it to Stacy. I'm gonna sign it, and then I'm gonna hopefully have Stacy sign it, but not like his actual signature. You know, nothing like that. Just put your name in it. And I'm gonna put Frank's book. I'm gonna send it to all y'all. There's a notes section, and I'm gonna utilize it. So feel free when you get the book to put whatever notes you want in there.
Well, don't send it to Sandy first.
No, I'm sending it to Stacy.
Are you saying there's not going to be any room left for everyone else?
Yeah.
No, I'm sending it to the person that's most like-minded to me first. And then Stacy has the terrible decision of who to send it to after him.
Can you get a PDF copy of this thing or what?
Why do you want to get it before your time? Why do you come to torment me?
Yeah, that's what I was just thinking.
I mean, no, you should. Like, no, you could just buy it for like $12 plus some shipping and handling. But I already bought it, so like you don't have to.
Oh, you're gonna ship it to everybody?
It's the book share
Why not?
program.
I mean, is there a rule in the universe that says I can't take a book
starting
that's
a
used
new business. Instead of Uber, it's going to be Bookshare.
Well, like for
And
me
he's
to
going to ship
send you
out of
that
a
money,
central
did you get your money
location.
yet, Albert?
It costs a lot less to ship one book to all y'all than it would to be buying all y'all each a book.
Yeah, media
Put it that
mail
way.
is pretty cheap.
Did you get that money yet, Albert?
I did not get it yet.
Yeah, well, that's how long it takes.
Exactly,
that-
because they
that
probably
cost me
seized it at
$5 to
customs
spend.
and were like, they're like,
Oh,
you can't send us American money.
You think? No, they would. No, they wouldn't. The only way I'd get ripped off is because I bought a padded envelope, and
Right. Yeah, I think if you disguised it in like some just computer paper, that'd be fine.
and
You make it sound
to
like
get
you make it
shipping
seem
from-
like it's some documents, but it's actually not
I
documents.
used to get stuff from Canada all the time. Didn't seem like it took that long.
It does. It takes
they
a
told
while.
me
Like
2 weeks.
yeah,
2
exactly.
weeks?
That's what
Yeah,
they said. Yeah.
because they have a backlog of all the packages that they have to go through customs. Like, come on.
A lot of people buy online now.
Yeah, and that's why they have a backlog. It's because
Yeah.
there's so many packages going through that they have to like look
I
at
guess,
all of them, or a good portion of them.
But just to ship
it's
that
been
money, just to ship the money that it cost me
Yeah, no worries.
$4.99
When did you
or
send?
$5.
Just tell me the date you sent it, and
I don't
I'll
know.
be able to find out like how long it should take before I should get it.
I've got a tracking number actually.
Well, if you have that, that's even better because then
Yeah.
you can just click on that and be like, oh, I see where it is. It's right there.
What did I do with it?
it's still at the same place you dropped it off at.
Huh?
I said it's still at the same place you dropped it off at.
It's still
Oh,
there.
it's slow.
It's,
It is
it's like,
slow.
no, I've seen that before where you get some item, you buy it, and it's like, yeah, it's still at the warehouse like 3 days later, and then they like overnight it to you or something. It's like, why would you do that? It costs so much more to overnight it than to have sent it 3 days ago. But yeah, short story small. It's very much easier to send you this one book, and yeah.
They only charge like $1 from
What's
us
the
to
name?
send the
And then
book
plus-
here.
What's the name of the
Plus-
book?
You can all sign the book. You can all put your signatures and your notes in the back where he left room for notes. But it's called Cast Them Out. Who were the biblical demons? Frank R. Spear.
I
No
watched a video on that the other day. I was pretty much in agreement. They were like, yeah, what we call demons, or what they call demons today, we would call mental illness. But then they were also like, I do think there's also spiritual real demons as well. So I think it was like a combination.
Right, and see, that's what I'm disputing with my whole thing. It's like, no, there's no invisible entity, dudes. Like, okay, yes, I understand people could have seizures, stuff like that. But again,
When you
like
get Frank's books
Matthew,
back from me, don't be surprised if there's some pages.
no, I'm just saying, like
missing
Matthew,
from
isn't there
Thomas
a verse?
Jefferson
there-
or whatever style.
Isn't there a verse in Matthew where it says like, and they were healed of all kinds of diseases, and then it goes over like it lists like 3 or 4 different things, like of all the ailments. One of them is like seizures and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But seriously, if you go to Bible Hub and you look at that verse and you mouse over on the Bible Hub section where it shows you what the actual meanings of all the words are, whether the blue letters or whatever, and you mouse over each of the terms in that one, you will see how absolutely ridiculously translated this whole one verse is. It's so ridiculous. Like every single verse that I looked at down the list had a different thing that it said for at least the first 7. I was like, wow, that's impressive. Like there's 7 different things that you guys are saying here. This is ridiculous. You are not in agreement. So when it says like epilepsy, no. Some versions say moonstruck. Well, that has a completely different meaning than epilepsy. You know what I'm saying? Like that changes what it's saying incredibly, like a huge amount in Frank's favor. They were moonstruck. That means that they were believing in like moon gods and stuff. Doesn't mean that they were having seizures and they were, so that takes away, it takes away from the healing power of Christ. But does it really? Because who did he come to heal? He does say stuff like, I came to heal the sick. Not, right? Does a person who's well need a doctor? No. But who were the sick people? The sick people were the people who were not believing in him. They weren't the people who were literally blind, literally unable to walk and paralyzed. You feel
Even
me?
though it says
You know what I'm
they're
saying?
that way from birth for some of them. So they're from birth, didn't know Jesus, but then I guess they did know Jesus, and that's how he was healed.
Maybe. I mean, I'm just, with what I was saying with that was just that,
I think Frank's got a big hill to climb.
well, sure he does. He definitely does. That's why I want to invite him. Anybody who wants to invite him, who's listening to this or who's on the panel, do it. Invite him.
Invite
Then he
who?
can defend himself. Yeah, Frank Spear. Invite him if you want. If you want. I mean, there's a chance that he won't join, so there's always that.
He doesn't look like he's much into debating.
That's why we don't debate here. We're just having a conversation. Right?
I don't know.
There's no debate format. I'm not like, well, Stacy, you get 35 minutes, and then we could do it that way if you want to.
Some people
I'll allot y'all
like,
some time. Each of you have 5 minutes to speak. After your 5 minutes, you're done. You can't speak ever again during the night. Just kidding.
Some people don't care.
I know, and that's okay. But see, that shows you who the person is. If Frank is unwilling to join us, what?
You keep interrupting me.
Sorry. Go ahead.
Holy, I can't remember what I was going to say now. Oh, I know. Some people don't care to go on. They know that their beliefs are so out there that they don't care to go on something where they feel like they're going to be just challenged and attacked and have to defend everything. Some people just are not into it. That's why his he doesn't have the comments up.
I know. He doesn't
have
comments, though, but I feel you.
You know?
Yeah, and that's why I want to invite him. But it's like, yo, we're not going to have a debate. It's not going to be like, I'm going to be against you and we're going to have a battle and, like, whoever wins, like, they're awesome. Like, no. I just want the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. I don't care. We don't have to have a battle. We can just have a normal discussion.
You want the truth? You can't handle the truth.
I can't handle the truth, but apparently I can so far. No, wait, is it a hot potato? Is that why? Can't handle it.
What show is it on? No, Officer and a Gentleman? No.
Yeah, that was it.
Was it?
Mm-hmm.
It was like Code
Jack
Red.
Nicholson. Huh?
Code Red or something. You can't handle the truth. Isn't it true you called it Code Red?
Oh, okay.
It wasn't Officer and Gentleman, though, because Officer and Gentleman, that was with Richard Gere, and wasn't it?
No, that wasn't Tom Cruise?
It was definitely Nicholas.
Crazy guy.
Freaking.
Was on
Tom Cruise.
What was his name?
Yeah, it was Tom Cruise, but Officer and Gentleman was with Richard Gere, I thought.
You can't handle the truth. That's the guy who played The Shining, John.
Jack Nicholson.
That's what I was going for. Yeah, Jack Nicholson.
Okay, Google. Movies with Jack Nicholson and Tom Cruise.
Movies with Jack Nicholson and Tom Cruise include A Few Good Men.
That's it.
What was the
Include name? a few good men of all the things.
Michelle has been saying A Few Good Men for a minute now, but I had it muted so nobody could hear her.
She loses.
She's like, A Few Good Men. I'm like, they'll get it.
They'll eventually figure it out.
Right. We've got telekinesis going on. We could hear
her. Sometimes we can hear her in the background.
Right.
No,
sometimes it's earth shattering.
Or
sometimes it's also glass shattering.
Or coffee cup shattering.
Yeah, that too.
But yo, let me ask you, where did that coffee cup come from? What is it made of?
Matthew ducked.
I'm very surprised Sandy didn't come on after all that chatter today.
She should be. You should probably hit her up. She might have forgotten or something. Because she said she was coming.
Well, how old are her kids?
She said she had to do the spaghetti thing and whatnot, but like she said, it seemed like she was going to come.
How old are her kids?
Yeah, don't know. We got to find out more about this person.
It's pretty tough when you got kids at home to be on here 3 nights a week and then all day long.
Well, that's the beauty of it, though. You don't have to. You choose to be here 3 times a week if you want to.
But
I'm not sure that she works though, so it might be a nice outlet for her to spend some of her day doing that.
In the military? Anybody else hear that?
He retired from it, so he spends most of his time in the man cave now. He came home from the war and got his medical retirement.
So yeah, just ping her and see if she's like, be like, hey, did you forget? Are you coming? Like, what's it good? Like, maybe she'll reply. Private messenger.
All right, let's.
But see, here's the ultimate. Who sends her the private message? Because it depends on who provokes her.
That would be me.
That's what I was thinking. I was like, it's got to be Matthew by default. You automatically win.
You're gonna have an argument so y'all can be friends again.
All right, wait, what?
Only you can summon her.
I think if you stick with Mystery Babylon, that topic, and sort of keep her focused, then once that gets cemented in, then you can, address other stuff, because other things I think will fall in line.
So funny that you chose the word cement.
Oh my gosh.
I'm just kidding.
Mud flood, here we go.
This is an active Bible study tonight, eh? Don't you think?
Not going later than normal. I mean, so far we still got a half hour to spare before people start dropping like flies. But a lot was said tonight, so it should be juicy for the people listening. That's all I'll say. If it's not, well, freaking tell me in the comments.
Monday night.
How did you figure out that Jerusalem was the Mystery Babylon or Horror Babylon or whatever you want to say, Matthew?
Oh, when I got out of dispensationalism, I don't know, somebody online or on a YouTube video or something had recommended a book, and it's a very small book, and it's called "Who Was the Mother of Harlots, Drunk with the Blood of the Saints" by Steve Temple. And I mean, you could read this book if you're not distracted, probably in an hour. I think Don Preston, yeah, he did the forward. What's that?
Do you know the name of it?
Name of what?
The book.
Yeah, that's the name. It's called Who Was the Mother of Harlots by Steve Temple. And I just pulled it out because I haven't read it in a while, but I just pulled it out, and it's really compelling. Anybody who reads it can't come away with anything different. It's very small too, so it's easy to focus on, right to the point. But it just makes so much sense, the whole. I mean, you start with the prophecies about Israel and their, their condemnation. Then Jesus comes and reiterates it in the parables. Then Paul tries to get them saved, and most of them, don't want to hear it. And then what happens a few years after the book of Acts closes? It's destroyed. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense for it to be Rome. Why would God? I think I put this in the comments. I forget how I put it. Why would the book of Revelation, such an integral part of the Bible, the last culminating book, be all about the destruction of a revived Roman Empire? I mean, it just doesn't even make any sense. It totally doesn't flow with the entire story.
So
that's what I'm saying. It doesn't flow. It's a bad flow.
You have to be a dispensationalist to believe that, because you're trying to put everything in the future. You're making Rome a revived Roman Empire. And you're breaking up the 70 weeks of Daniel. And
that's funny, because that book you're talking about right now,
right?
So I go to Don Preston's YouTube channel, and here he is promoting it. And then I scroll down, and 7 years ago, this guy commented, and he says, "Hope you're able to acquire your aluminum heads. Not much racing going on for me these days, but I hope to change that in the future, Yahweh willing." Guess who said it?
Who said it?
Rob.
Get out of here.
7 years ago.
That is
and Rob says, "Didn't watch the video, but I believe the harlot was Jerusalem. However, I think Catholic religion definitely partakes a lot of its way after the mystery religion as well."
Yeah, I was just saying that I was looking at some of this stuff 7 years ago. So, but that was who made that video that wrote the book or whatever.
No, this is on. You commented on Don Preston's channel.
Oh, Don Preston's channel. Oh, okay, I gotcha. I thought it was
2012. That's hilarious.
But Don was talking about that book or whatever.
Yeah.
Gotcha. I still wonder if the Catholic Church is somewhat like, because it doesn't talk about like the daughter of the whore or something like that in Revelation. I could be mistaken, but I thought they'd talk about a daughter.
Daughter of Babylon?
Something like that, yeah. Or who that would be.
And some people believe it's in the United States. But how can you be a harlot? If you're a harlot, you're a harlot to God. You can only be a harlot to God if you're married to God.
Right.
Roman Catholic Church was never married to God. It can't be the harlot.
Well, no, not the harlot, the daughter.
Right. Yeah, but I'm going back to just the main gist. But yeah, I don't know what the daughter thing means.
It talks about a daughter? Does it?
There's a mention or two of it, right?
Let me search real quick.
Look at Isaiah. It starts off in the first chapter. How has the faithful city become a harlot? So Isaiah calls the faithful city a harlot. All of a sudden, the harlot is not people, but it's a city. Yeah, someone just messaged me on a post that I did 5 years ago.
Really?
On a debate, predestination debate. For whom did Christ die? I think it was with Michael Brown. So I made a couple of comments, and a couple of threads. This guy just commented, "Do you still believe the same way?" He said, "Fine piece of English, but I humbly disagree." But I commented back, and he hasn't answered.
Invite him on the panel. He wants fine English, I'll give it to him running out of his nose, right?
Well, he's obviously a Calvinist because he disagreed with what I wrote.
Yeah.
Good for him.
So he writes, the question is not about what you and I think.
Was it me 5 years ago?
Yeah. He goes, after reading Romans, I must admit that Paul had a strong belief in the sovereignty of God. I'm like, oh, there it is. He's right. I'm wrong. He believes in the sovereignty of God. Like, it's always the same thing. Sovereignty of God. Sovereignty of God. Sovereignty. The word
you believe in the sovereignty of God. You just believe that back in the past he was more sovereign than now.
I told him I believe in the sovereignty of God, but the word only means that he does what he wants. It doesn't mean that he predestines everything. They're not
Does
synonyms.
it mean he knows everything? I thought it meant that he knows everything too.
Look up the word sovereign. What is a sovereign nation? A sovereign nation is a nation that is not governed by another nation. It's free. That's what the word means.
So it just means that God's not governed by anybody else.
Yeah. It's all the word means, and that's all you hear from Calvinists. God's sovereign, God's sovereign. All right, I agree. God's sovereign. The question is, what does he want to do? I say he wants to give you free will. That's God's sovereignty.
I think that's the only,
Well, it kind of conflicts then. God, which does God, so you would say God has two desires and they conflict with one another. So he prefers one desire over the other. Because you're saying that God desires free will, but God also desires that all men be saved.
Right.
Those two conflict. So you would have to say, well, out of those two desires, God prefers free will.
Yes, I would. It's more important to him to give you a free will. I would definitely agree with that.
So God doesn't get what he wants always.
Right, exactly. I mean, that's what it says.
Well, then he's not sovereign, is he?
Use the word correctly, Rob. We just defined it.
Yeah, but I thought you said that you defined it, but he gets what he
Right.
wants.
So in other words,
I
God
didn't say
is
he gets what he
governed,
wants.
but
I
God
said he
is
does what he wants.
so God is self-governing, but here in this situation, God is governed by circumstance.
No, he's not governed by people who refuse to believe. That doesn't govern him.
No, I'm not talking about the people. I'm talking about God is governed by the circumstance of his two desires that conflict with one another.
I don't think it governs him. I just think that's the way he desires it to be. It's not changing. It's not changing God. Like when we're governed, we have to, follow these rules that other people make. I think God's doing exactly what he wants to do in, allowing for free will, because I think that's the desire of his heart. It's that you come to him, you seek him, you believe in him of your own volition. I think that's extremely important to God, and I can understand why. I wouldn't want to impose anyone else to, please love me. It's kind of sick.
It's not even please love me, as I'm going to make you love me.
Yeah, that's even worse. Here's some
If
poison.
you know,
I'm
you're going to fake it.
put this in the water, only in certain people's water, though. No, but
Is there any way to know for sure?
No.
Yeah, I think just follow the words of the Bible without going beyond it. I don't know. That's what I try to do.
Well, there's Calvinist verse and there's free will verses. Seems like.
Who do they apply to in context? That's my thing. I don't think, like I just said to the guy. Listen to what I said to the guy. He said, "Do you still believe?" And I said, "I wholeheartedly do, and here's why. I do believe in the sovereignty of God, but the term doesn't mean absolute predetermination. It simply means God can do what he wants." In Romans 1 through 11, Paul gives a treatise on why and how Israel didn't get what they sought after, because they sought after it if it were by the works of the law. The Gentiles, on the other hand, got what they were seeking for by faith. Faith versus law is the message, not predestination. If predestination was the message, then faith versus works argument is mute. The word predestination is only used twice in the entire New Testament, Ephesians 1 and Romans 8. As I've already pointed out, the predestined ones in Ephesians were the apostles. You guys heard my...
you bring up a good point that really faith versus works should be mute if Calvinism was true for everyone.
What's the whole point? It's all Paul ever writes about is the law's gone, it's faith versus works, make sure you believe, make sure you don't go back to the law. What would it all matter? But I told him, in context, the nation of Israel was given a spirit of stupor. Read Isaiah 6. Under that temporary blindness, they could not recognize their own Messiah, and that for a purpose of God in Christ being crucified for the whole world. Certain vessels were chosen out of that blinded nation for a distinct purpose. If the whole world were under a spirit of stupor from birth, Israel would not have needed that temporary blindness, but God specifically closed their eyes for a time to accomplish his will. John states, therefore they could not believe because of what Isaiah wrote. So you see, God is sovereign and blinded Israel temporarily and then removed those blinders when the prophecy was fulfilled. So I see the predestination verses as pertaining to, like, when it says, who are you, O man, to talk back to God? It doesn't mean, Paul is not saying, don't talk back to God for all these people that God doesn't want to save in the entire human history. He's saying, don't talk back to God for blinding Israel. That's the context. Who are you to question God in how he's dealing with Israel? That's the context.
But the Church of Colossae was chosen, correct? Not just the apostles?
They were chosen for what? We've gone over that verse, I think.
Yeah, we did.
3:12.
Paul says they were chosen.
Mm-hmm. Eklektoi. That's the same
Yep.
word he uses in Romans.
They were the chosen in quotes, right?
There you go with those invisible quotes again.
Yep. Just like the church is the Israel of God, in quotes. But anyway, we beat that with a dead horse.
And a unicorn.
During the mud flood.
Oh, you're talking about
Right.
unicorns, rhinoceri?
No, we woke up Albert.
That's right.
No.
Oh, good Lord. We woke up Albert.
It's funny. I was reading a demon book. It's fun. Okay.
No comment.
Exactly. We're gonna pretend like I never woke up.
I can't believe I've been on here for 4 hours with my sleeping off and on. It seems like it's been an hour.
How God, dog. You were compelled to stay.
Stacy.
Oh, isn't that funny? Those books
Yes.
are the exact same height and almost thick. That's fun.
Stacy.
Yes.
Stacy.
Yes.
You don't watch Big Bang Theory?
Do I watch that show? No.
Okay. He knocks on the door and he always says it 3 times. Stacy.
Oh,
Stacy. Stacy. Little OCD. Anyway, my question, I'd really like you guys, as partial and full preterist, to go over the resurrection for me. Just one at a time. Is it too late for that?
Yeah, it's kind of
There's
late.
never what? No, it's never too late. Do it. If people want to drop, they can drop. Fine. Doesn't mean the rest of us can't continue without you. You know what I'm saying?
What's the most convincing 2 scriptures that you have for the resurrection have taken place in 70 AD?
Daniel 12. It's all I ever hear from these guys.
That's
Okay.
a pretty powerful one. Yeah.
Just wait.
Back in the Old Testament.
Matthew, your turn
What?
is next. I just want 2 scriptures from each of you that I can think about.
First off, before we give you, do you have your copybook ready?
My coffee book?
Your copybook.
For what?
The place where you're going to write down what we say.
Oh, no, I always put it in my,
No, you got to write it down. If you don't write it down, why am I going to tell you? You're going to forget.
oh, no, I could put it in my, what's
Write it
called?
in your copybook. You should put it in your copybook. Anyway, look at this show. It's called Look
No, I
Around
always
You.
type it out.
Yeah, fair enough.
But if Stacy's exhausted, I don't want him to,
Well, it's obviously it's Daniel 12, and it's the passage in Matthew that is very similar to that, and it's Matthew 20. I don't know where it is. It's somewhere between 20 and 24. They'll be bright and shining as the sun, or something like that.
Oh, right. I think I
Yeah,
heard
that-
that argument from you yet. Hang on. Matthew 13:43. Then the righteous will shine like the sun.
Yes, that's it.
Okay.
And Daniel 12, because it says sort of the same thing.
I'd have to go with probably Daniel 12.
Hang on. And what did you say? Daniel 12? Oh, yeah, I got that one.
And Matthew 16:28.
Matthew. Okay. And something else?
What does Matthew 16:28 say?
I don't know.
That's one where it says some standing here that shall not taste death till they see the Son of Man coming in his kingdom, or something like that. So,
You think that backs up the resurrection?
Yeah, because the resurrection was to come when he came.
Right. Okay.
Because there's no real verses that say the resurrection took place. There's no verse that says the temple was destroyed. So it's all
You said Matthew
piecemeal.
16:28?
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else?
But there are no verses that say the resurrection took place.
No, I know.
Just like there's no verses that say the temple was destroyed.
Mm-hmm. Any other ones, Rob? What about you, Albert?
The question?
She said, "Are demons real?" She said, "Do you know you changed your mind?"
The answer is no. But no, I was sorry. I was working on something else for another brother from another mother. Sorry, I wasn't fully paying attention to what you were saying.
Full preterist resurrection verse. What's your proof? 2 scriptures.
What's my proof? Scriptures of what?
Of
the resurrection took place in 70 AD.
Oh, of the resurrection took place. Okay. Wow, that's a hard question, considering, like, to me the resurrection isn't even like, oh man, like there's never any people even coming back to the earth or anything.
Not the nature, the timing.
I know, yeah. So I don't know. Sorry, I'd have to get back to you on that. I have nothing off the top of my head.
Right. Matthew, what about you?
2 parallel verses.
Okay.
1 Corinthians 15, 51 and 52. Behold, I tell you a mystery. We shall not all sleep, but we shall all be changed in a moment, in the twinkling of an eye, at the last trumpet. For the trumpet will sound, the dead will be raised incorruptible, and we shall be changed. The parallel verse is 1 Thessalonians 4:16. For the Lord himself shall descend from heaven with a shout, with the voice of the archangel, and with the trump of God, and the dead in Christ shall rise first.
Okay. That's all I wanted.
It's interesting how the full preterists won't use those 2 passages as their main verses when they're pretty clear resurrection verses.
I would
They
use
just
that.
talk about the resurrection, but there is no verse that says the resurrection took place.
I just couldn't think of it like the way you were just presenting it.
At all. In fact, I couple that 1 Corinthians 15, 50 and 51 verse with verse 56 that you avoid like the plague.
I do not. I just don't like your interpretation of it, or what
translation.
What you think is implied by it. It's so great. We all know what each other doesn't like.
It's the best though. It's like, you're gonna say this, or you're gonna say that.
Who was it the other day? Oh, it was Troy that said that we can never come to an understanding, to any agreement on anything. Isn't that what he said in the chat?
I believe somebody from the outside came in. I think it was maybe Troy or somebody. They were like, I love how you guys, like, none of you agree on, like, anything. Yet you still can all come together and, like, we're all talking about it in a friendly manner, but we can't agree on, like, anything. Like, I say up is that direction, you say up is this direction.
We do agree on a lot, though. You have to admit.
I think so too. And I mean, it'd be interesting to see how we all believe in 10 years.
Yo, but you know what's even more exciting than that? for the immediate now, we already have that measure. You can go back on my channel alone, and then maybe even on Chris's channel as well, and you can see how we've changed. Listen to any of our old videos from 4 or 5 years ago, and you'll be like, what? Completely different. Like, that's not what Albert would say. What? Like, he's talking nonsense. Same thing. Like, have you heard the videos that we recorded 3, 4, 5 years ago? Because they're there. It's interesting to hear the things that we were saying back then. And think about how far we've come since just even 5 years ago.
Oh man, I think about what I used to believe. Oh geez, I just shook my head.
Exactly. It's like, oh my God, I can't believe I was so retarded.
Anything that came from the pulpit. Oh, absolutely.
It's the greatest though. When you're like, when you realize it, you're like, wow.
I do miss going to church sometimes though.
And nobody said you can still go to church. It's just it won't be the exact. It won't be the exact same as it was when you used to go.
I'm not sure how you hang out with 20 Christians that are expecting Jesus to come back at any second after Israel's destroyed.
Like it's actually quite fun for the person like me or you. If you did that, like, trust me, like, you might actually have some fun. You'd be like, wow, this is entertaining. I can't believe they're going to even come at me with this.
As long as you keep your mouth shut. You have to keep your mouth shut.
Let's see, Sunday morning, there was a guy that said that the world is coming to an end soon. And someone else sort of chimed in. And then he said, well, we're closer to it today than we were yesterday. And I'm thinking, actually, it was closer yesterday than it is today.
Right.
The exact opposite.
I haven't heard that before, Stacy, but that's a good point.
It's the exact opposite, which is the fun part of the whole thing, right? Somebody says something and you're like, wow, actually, because I believe the exact opposite. It's like, what the? I don't know why, but like, you're wrong, I'm right. Sorry.
I clicked on Kenneth Copeland's channel the other day. I couldn't even listen to it. It was the prophecies for 2020.
I would love to hear it because I'd be like, I can't wait for it not to come true.
And of course, and you can tell that he's got somebody monitoring his channel because it was all positive feedback, all of it. There was not. So I thought there's no point even commenting.
See, now there's got to be an agenda behind it. There's no way. There's no way that it says, oh, it just so happens to be like, this guy is so awesome. Like, no. Nobody's that awesome. Except for Jesus.
Especially with all the mudslinging going at him lately. There would be a ton of negative comments on there, and there wasn't one.
Yeah, see, now that's I can't believe that. There's got to be some bad.
Did you look at the likes and dislikes? Because I don't think they can change.
There wasn't any.
Okay.
There was no dislikes, because I wanted to dislike it and I couldn't.
I think it was disabled. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Disabled that one, right? And then they can remove the negative comments.
Yeah.
There's a couple of videos by Greg Laurie. You guys know who Greg Laurie is?
I've heard the name.
No.
Just some popular pastor, preacher guy.
Oh, I just watched him, actually. I was watching something about him.
Israel, Magog, and the Rapture. Oh, I got to see that one. Here's another one. Antichrist, America, and Armageddon.
Mhm.
Sounds juicy. Because
Here's another one.
Armageddon and apocalypse, right? Everybody's like, apocalypse. Apocalypse doesn't mean what you think it means. It means like disclosure of knowledge, not like everything's going to get annihilated.
I think the world has changed the meaning of that word.
They have.
Yeah.
And that's why we think the most retarded stuff about the scriptures. It's like, oh
Keep
dear.
using that word. I do not think it means what you think it means.
Exactly. You got do not think it means what you think it means, good sir. That is exactly how Frank starts his book, by the way, which you are about to receive.
All right.
No, but seriously, I'm curious to see who you're going to send it to after yourself. But you better read it takes like literally like 15 minutes to read the entire thing.
I'll put out little feelers. I'll put out little feelers and get feedback.
He's gonna send
No,
it to
because
the. He's gonna
you know,
send it to the Pope.
you can put out the feelers, but I actually wrote in the back of the book. He left space notes, so I want you to write whatever you want to write right back there. Just write it in there, and then whoever you give it to, they'll have the pleasure of reading what I wrote and what you wrote.
Well, make sure
We'll
you
keep that,
initial. Make sure
and
you
we'll keep that
initial.
tradition going and see how ridiculous it gets.
But make sure you initial your notes and edits or whatever, and I'll initial mine. That way, when people get it towards the end, they'll know who said what.
Oh, exactly. Yeah, no, definitely. I have my actual name on the first note. Like my actual name is there, not my
Right.
not my Albert Wesker name, which everybody should know by now is not my real name. Because if you
Your
don't,
secret real
you're
name.
being silly. Obviously, Albert Wesker is not my name. It's from Resident Evil. If anybody is paying attention.
Not everybody games.
I don't game, so I thought that was your real name for quite a while.
Yeah, but it's Resident Evil. Watch the movie, and then you'll be like, "Oh, I see who you're trying to be."
The guy who's.
I have a question that we need to be posing to any dispensationalists we talk to. You know how they say
Do it.
this generation, and then they say, well, that is
The generation coming.
the generation that saw these things. That's what Jesus was talking about. And then they attribute that to the birth of Israel, the modern state, 1947, 48.
Mm-hmm.
And then they say, well, that generation, they started off by saying it's 40 years.
Yeah.
So that's why some of the people
80 or
came up with 88. You know, now it's like past even 70 years. How long is this generation?
Well,
Like,
I think
when-
they've upped it to 120, as high as 120.
Yeah.
Is that what they've done?
Yeah.
Yep.
I guess we got to wait. We got to wait till that's over.
They'll use the Genesis passage that
Yeah.
man's years will be 120, and so
Well, then I'll be like 1,000 years is like a day, so it'll be 120 years times 1,000.
and then it'll be 40,000 years because
Yeah, things like that.
It is true. So you can just make it say whatever you want, right?
that's what Ellen White did. She just kept upping the date.
She's an interesting character, hey?
Yeah.
I haven't read her prophecies or anything like that, but I used to watch what's his name for all his history because he knew his history. He like his 70 AD and stuff. I can't remember his name now. He's an older.
Walter
I know
White.
who you're talking about. That
Walter V.
Doug Batchelor? Walter
Yeah,
Reed?
I was thinking
Walter
Doug
White.
Batchelor.
Walter V.
I'm not sure I know who that is.
He talks
Yeah.
a lot about conspiracies,
What
but
is
it's
it?
all about Catholic Church being the heart
Right.
of that.
Right.
Yeah.
He's the
But I
one
like
with
it.
the
He's got
accent.
some good history.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of accent does he have? Is it
He is
Australian?
a
think
South
so.
African,
Yeah, that's
That's
what it is.
strong South
Yeah.
African.
Yeah. But he's a what is he, a vegetarian as well? Follows the food laws.
I think he does for sure, if not vegan.
And the Sabbath. And the 10 Commandments. Yeah. You guys ever listen to Chuck Missler?
Yeah, he's the kooky great uncle, everybody has.
I listen to him like once a year, maybe.
I used to.
Yeah,
But
me
he
too.
said that the Luke passage and the Matthew passage of the Olivet Discourse were two separate
Oh my gosh.
events. And I'm like, wow, that's a stretch.
I was trying to think of who else I used to listen to. Who did I listen to when I was a dispensationalist? I'm trying to think. Gene Kim. Like I used to listen to him a bit.
What was it?
His name was Gene Kim. Gene Kim.
Never heard of it.
He's a little Asian guy. He's a dispensation hardcore.
Yeah. Oh my God, Gene Kim. Oh my goodness, Gene Kim goes way off into La La Land.
He's a KJV onlyist as well.
Yeah, but he definitely just did a video like you guys were just talking just recently.
What
What's
about
that?
Jack Van Impe?
No, I couldn't, no. Did you listen to him?
I used to when I was very young.
My brother used to listen to him, I think.
Is Sid Roth a dispensationalist?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty
He's
sure
all
he
about
is.
Israel.
He's all about Israel. He's a Jew, too.
Michael Brown is a dispensationalist?
Yeah.
He won't call himself one, but he is.
What does he call himself?
I don't know, but I've heard him say multiple times, I'm not a dispensationalist. Come on.
Hey, Matthew.
So would a dispensationalist be somebody that doesn't believe in the covenants? The first Old and New Covenant?
No, they do.
They do? Didn't
Yeah.
seem to me when I listened to Gene Kim. I never heard covenant.
But they're confused. They think that, we are, what we're in now was like this thing that was not prophesied about. And, there's two mountain peaks and we're in the valley, but the second mountain peak is for the, restoration of Israel. We get raptured first. Then God deals with Israel again. Antichrist comes, temple rebuilt.
Yeah,
Michael Brown believes all that.
Hey, Matthew.
Yeah.
I'm not a full preterist, but I do believe that the Lord's second coming was in 70 AD and everything was fulfilled.
That's me.
But I'm not a full preterist. Right?
Yeah, I get your point.
I would say Matthew just believes in a final judgment.
That's kind of why labels are good. They're expedient, but they, you got to be careful with them.
it would take forever to get through anything if you didn't have a label for it.
Yeah,
you gotta have some kind of an outline.
I'm a partial preterist with a twist, or
The twist is right.
Twisted partial preterist.
Twisted, yeah.
I see how this is going.
Twisted scripture.
Definitely. Paul proclaiming Matthew, huh? Or no, that was it Peter that proclaimed Paul?
But you know what? Paul was a futurist.
At one point.
That's another term that I love. Futurist. It's so open-ended. If you believe anything's going to happen in the future, you're a futurist. Well, we're all futurists then.
For me, it was like I just came to a kind of a logical conclusion. I just don't see why everything is fulfilled except for the resurrection.
Well, the reason that I would describe it as such is because if you have the new covenant that's inaugurated, now God is like taking a people from every nation, tongue, and tribe. But if the culmination of that and it is a restoration of the earth, then God wouldn't restore the earth until he's ready to resurrect all the people for that restoration. And that would be one reason, one logical reason why people would be dead in Christ in order to be raised at the last day, to all enter into the promised land, in quotes, as at once. That's what the sleeping in Jesus facilitates, everybody entering at the same time, which is what I believe is referred to as the last day. If there's no restoration.
So you believe that the earth will be destroyed in new heaven and new earth, right?
Yeah, I believe the new heaven and earth does refer to the new covenant. There's no doubt about it. But I also believe that just because you use the term heaven and earth metaphorically doesn't mean that in another passage the term heaven and earth can't mean the heaven and earth. What else are you going to describe it if you're really talking about the physical heaven and earth now? You'd have to use those terms. And that's what I think Peter does when he says, just like the flood, that the earth was destroyed by water, now the present heaven and earth is saved for fire. That's what I think he's talking about. And I think he's talking about a restored earth. I think that's what we were created for, to be on the earth.
And
I think Jesus Christ.
Preterists believe that judgment, that fire came in 70 AD, right? Is that right? Gotcha.
Right.
Because Malachi chapter 4 has fire language where it's like, I will melt you. You will be ashes under my feet type thing. Mm-hmm. And it's fire language is judgment language.
Well, I think of John the Baptist when he's preaching in the wilderness. And he says that you will be baptized with water and with fire. Isn't that the way it goes?
Right. But there are multiple, like if Paul says you have been raised and seated with Christ and you're still alive, but you're not with Christ yet, well, then eventually you will be literally raised and seated with Christ, whether you're full or partial preterist, whether it happens corporately or individually. So just because something speaks of, Well,
there, I would say raised is in status.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, I would too.
I wouldn't say that's coming out of the, ground or.
Oh, yeah. No, I would too. But that's my point. And one instance talking about, it's using the term raised, but not in a literal fashion. That doesn't negate that it may happen literally.
Yeah, it says here, I baptize you with water for repentance, but after me will come one more powerful than I, whose sandals I am not worthy to carry. He will baptize you with the Holy Spirit and with fire. His winnowing fork is in his hand to clear his threshing floor and to gather his wheat into the barn, but he will burn up the chaff with unquenchable fire.
So he baptizes with the Holy Spirit in the first century, and then thousands of years later, he baptizes the world in fire.
No, I think John was talking about 70 AD, Israel. Okay. But again, John isn't Paul. I think Paul is talking about something different.
Well, I love you, Matthew. You prove my point so well all the time, yet we're still somehow in disagreement.
I'm fine with full preterism as long as you don't tell me it's Israel only.
I love you too. Yeah, it's definitely not Israel only. That's retarded.
That is super retarded.
I like investigating it.
I literally have no idea why Israel only people even bother do what they do. It's like, why are you gonna even bother? Like, if it's only for Israel, like, what are you trying to be
Well,
like? Are you trying to gain
no.
kudo points yourself? Like, what are you
Right.
doing?
Close the book and go home. Get off YouTube and
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
it's Israel only.
Or at least at the very minimum, just make one video, call it a day, right? Like, just make one video, you cover it all, and you're good.
I think it's trying to figure out what is for Israel and what is for all. That's kind of where
No,
I'm at.
I know, but what Albert's point is this. These Israel only, like take Jason DaCosta. So he spends like, I don't know how much of his life reading a book that doesn't apply to him. And now he's going to try to make a whole bunch of videos to convince you that the book doesn't apply to you either. And yet he's spending all of his time studying that book in order to do this.
Yeah, no, I get it.
Correct,
Like,
and
go
that
to
makes
work.
0 sense. 0.
Go to work, make money, do something different. If it doesn't matter, you know. And then
Yeah,
they
I mean,
call
because
them.
that
So
really
what
is
do
this
they
whole thing.
believe? What does
It's
Israel only believe, that when we die now, we just vanish?
yeah. I mean, I don't see why they're concerned with anything if it's if it was just all for Israel. Like,
I think DaCosta doesn't know, unless he's come up with something. I think it was almost a year ago that I asked him, so what is God doing with us today? And he said, I don't know. I'll be the first to. He said he believes in God. He believes the Bible is true. He just believes it's history and it doesn't apply to us. You take like Frank Spear. Now he's got a totally different approach. He thinks the Bible is all for Israel, but then it facilitated the new covenant. But now we're not even in the new covenant now. That ended too in the first century. And we are all saved because of what Christ did. So
yeah, that's going a bit far as well. That's
I didn't hear him say that. What I was hearing him saying is that the new covenant is universal.
Yeah, I definitely heard him say that the new
No,
covenant is not for
I
us.
think Jason DaCosta is that. He believes that. But what's his pickle doesn't. Spears. I'm pretty sure I heard Jason DaCosta say that there's nothing. Everybody's saved. That's it.
yeah, that would be ridiculous because then that means there's nothing required. You can just you can be the worst person on earth and you're just you're fine. Like, no, that's not what it's saying.
That's not what I got. That's
I
not
have-
what I got from Frank.
I have a question about that. So let's say you're Israel only, but universal Israel only, like post 70 AD universalist. So now you're saying that the Bible's was not written about you, but you're saved because of Jesus Christ and what happened in the Bible. So what would you say about pre-70 AD? You'd have to say, well, not everybody was saved. So now you're saying that God picked Israel, but not everybody was saved in Israel. They had to either follow the law or have faith. But
That's
then
right.
everybody past AD 70 is saved.
That's right. That's right.
If that's the case, then I don't want to be chosen by God.
Well, it's like what you say, as far as your partial open theism, it's partial universalism, that God is now universal, whereas before he was not, whereas God was manipulating things in the past where you believe, but now he is not.
I would say that partial universalism is a really good description of it.
Right, but it's kind of backwards. See, like, why would you say that God, like, if you said God chose Israel, then, and you didn't know any better, you'd think, all right, well, then the whole nation of Israel is saved. God chose them. But once Israel is done, well, now you're not chosen. So, you have to believe or you have to do something. But
Well,
this
the
is
lamb that was slain for the nation was chosen and then became slain, and then the atonement for that was universal within that nation.
yeah.
So if that's a microcosm of the real world, then I think they're taking it that way.
Right. But what they don't see in that view is that the cross is kind of like it's a universal theme in human history. It projects forward and backward. If Abraham believed and it was counted to him for righteousness, what righteousness was counted to him? The righteousness of Christ. So the cross.
But Christ hadn't been crucified yet. So
exactly, that's what I'm saying. It extends backwards. God could say, you believe. It says Abraham saw my day. Jesus said, or Abraham. It also says Abraham was given the gospel in so many different words.
So then are you saying then that when the high priest would make the sacrifice for the nation on Atonement Day, that there were some Israelites within the crowd who, through faith, did not need that blood atonement?
No, I would say that if they had faith and they were credited righteousness like Abraham was, they would have been credited the righteousness of Christ, even though they don't see him yet. That's how it says Abraham was saved.
So the lamb was not necessary for them.
No, it was. Because the lamb slain was predetermined. It was a point in history that God knew. And this is all in God's mind. I mean,
Right,
if God,
I'm talking about the physical lamb that
Mhm.
the high priest would sacrifice on the Day of Atonement.
oh, I don't know I don't think that it really atoned. It was God's way of seeing.
wasn't it just a temporary atonement?
Yeah, it's a covering. It's a temporary thing, and it showed whether they had faith or not in their obedience, I suppose. But I still think it pointed to Christ, and But these people weren't like. I think it's just like today. I think you can lose your salvation as a Christian. I think you can stop believing if you wanted to. You could stop trusting in Christ. And I think back then.
Yeah, but how do you need to explain that when you say something like that? Because I know Christians that go through valleys and peaks and do I believe it? I don't know. Like I just
believe what?
Well, I mean, put it in words. What exactly you have to believe?
Oh, well, you have to be trusting in the fact that Christ did the work for you, and you have to be trusting that His blood is what atones for your sin. If you start to believe that it's your works, then you slip right into works-based salvation.
So if you go back to work salvation, because I tell you what, that was my whole walk with God, was works pretty well, I would say. Did I lose my salvation?
Well, that's what Paul writes to the Galatians. He says, I'm afraid for you, lest I preach to you in vain. But what does preach to you in vain? That means they're not saved. They're trusting in works.
But does he say they would lose their salvation?
He doesn't have to. He says, I'm afraid for you, lest I preach in vain.
That could have been just their walk. They're fearful for their, not necessarily for their salvation.
It's very strong language. Who has bewitched you, he's saying. How can you start, in the spirit and hope to finish in the flesh? Now, in Romans, it talks about being cut off. That's even more plain to me.
Yeah, but doesn't cut off kind of mean death?
No, it means cut off from the covenant, cut off from the vine.
That is death.
It's death, but it's non-salvation. He says Israel can be grafted back in if they believe. Grafted back. If they're not going to believe, what does that mean? It means they're not saved. He just got done telling you that when you want to get saved, you have to believe. Now he's saying Israel doesn't believe, but they can be grafted in if they believe. And if you
So we're handed
don't,
ourselves.
if
But
he
it's
says you
possible.
don't continue, you can be cut off.
But it's possible that because when Paul was talking, there were two covenants simultaneously. One was
Yeah.
being ushered in, and the other one was fading away. And then after 70 AD, there is only one covenant.
Right. So what are you saying? So you can't follow the law today after 70 AD?
You can't follow the old covenant, yes, because it doesn't exist anymore.
Right. But can you slip into a works-based salvation?
I think
In your
most
mind.
of the world is there.
Yeah. But as a believer, can you start to believe, can you start to be deceived and think that it's your works that are earning you merit? Sure you can.
Well, I think as believers that we all walk in that, because it talks about the fruits and what exactly are works. I think that we all walk in a works-based salvation to a degree.
To a degree, yeah, I agree. And it's
I don't think you
depending on
can
how
get
you
away
look
from
at
it.
it, whether it's a salvation issue or whether it's a sanctification issue or whether it's what you ought to do,
What you're not doing.
Right.
I have to tell you, and this is no joke, from the day that I got saved, I have never slipped into a works-based salvation. I have known from day one that I can't do a damn thing. And I know that it's Christ, and I know that it's my belief in him. And the only thing that I can say when I stand before God is, I trust in Christ. That's it. I don't know how any Christian can go ahead and say, well, you know what? I think what I just did is kind of helping me get saved. I don't even believe.
We just talked about that Friday night where we were in Hebrews and it was talking about the elementary principles. And that was the elementary principles. And then the writer of Hebrews saying, now you need to grow up. Now you need to mature.
Right. You need to mature, but the elementary principle is faith in God. That's, I think that's what he was saying.
So
but anyway, I think you can fall into a works-based salvation, whether you fall back onto, whether you're a Hebrew roots and you think you're following the law, even though, like, you're right, you can't. You can't travel to Israel on the feast days that required you to be there. You can do the best you can, but
right. What I would say, what I would call, these are what I think some Christians are referring to as works, but you would call them fruit, and that's back to Colossians 3:12. Put on then, as God's chosen ones, holy and beloved, compassion. So you're to put on compassion, put on kindness, put on humility, put on meekness, and put on patience, bearing with one another. So if it was just a fruit, there's no way that you could put it on. So the idea and the language that Paul's using by put on means that, you're making a choice to do this.
Right.
So where James is saying, I will show you my faith by my works. I think these are the works that James would refer to as works that you would call fruit. But nevertheless, you're commissioned to put these things on, not just, let them eventually, manifest themselves or anything, but you're to put them on.
Yeah. I just see, regarding the once saved, always saved thing, the scriptures that I mentioned, you have Romans, you have a lot of if statements. If you continue, here's one right here.
Right. I agree.
Yeah. Let that therefore abide in you, which you have heard from the beginning. If that which you have heard from the beginning shall remain in you, ye also shall continue in the Son and in the Father. Well,
and Revelation says, he who perseveres unto the end, that is the one that shall be saved.
Now, I think it's consistent to say that if you are saved by faith only, then there's no way to sin yourself out of salvation if that were even possible. I don't think it's possible, but the way that I could see me leaving salvation is if I begin to not have faith. If somebody steals my faith, or somebody convinces me that what I believe is not so, or somebody convinces me that I need to follow the law, you know, just believing that I believe and I'm saved is just, you know, it's too easy. That's easy grace, you know. If somebody convinced me of that,
cheap grace.
yeah, you know the argument. Then if somebody could convince me of that, then I
There's a
think
guy that wrote a book, and that's the name of the title, I believe, is Cheap Grace.
cheap grace, yeah. It's a big topic. And people are always like people who love to I think these are people who, you know, could very well be just a little bit prideful of what they do. And they write a book on it and call it cheap grace when you say, well, no, you get saved just by believing. Whether you have works or not doesn't even matter. The argument is, how do you get saved? Is it by works? Is it by merit? Is it merit-based?
How much knowledge do you have to get saved?
Well, you have
Just
to
one,
understand atonement theory in depth, I guess.
See, I don't know. Like, I didn't understand anything.
yeah. So wait, what you're saying is because you need to have a certain knowledge, that can't be right. So then what would it be? I have to do certain thing?
I don't know. No, I mean, when I first got saved, or when I first became a quote believer,
Right?
my doctrine was so warped. How do you I don't even remember what I believed. I have no idea.
Well, it could be that God saved you because of your simple faith, or it could be that you weren't saved until you did know the truth. I don't know. But all I know is what the Bible says. It
No, I
says that
know.
you get
Yeah.
saved by faith. It's not of yourselves. It's a gift of God, lest anyone should boast. That's it. It's very simple. If
But
you
it does
do
say faith
stuff,
is a gift. You
yeah,
say
but
faith is a choice.
it doesn't say faith is a gift. It says salvation is a gift. There's a big difference. Faith is not the gift there. In any linguistic sense, it can't be. Ephesians 2:8 and 9. It's 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 salvation. You are saved, and that is not of yourself. Salvation is a gift of God. The salvation is not of works, and it's not of yourself. That's how I read it.
Right.
I know people read it a different way, but see, if salvation was, if faith was the gift, then you wouldn't have to know it's a gift, and you wouldn't have to be careful, and you wouldn't have to make sure that you believe, and you wouldn't have to make every effort to enter into His rest. You wouldn't have to do anything.
Well, when someone gives you a gift, I mean, you can either, throw it away or you can take care of it. If
Right,
someone
but
gives you a plant, you're going to water the plant, you're going to nourish it, you're going to make sure it gets sun.
otherwise, what? You can reject the gift. Well, now you're back to free will. If it's a gift and you can't reject it, then it still doesn't matter whether you open it or not. Then
So when I
it's
was
just
13, I believed there was a God.
what's that?
I said when I was 13, I believed there was a God. I remember thinking there's a God, and I slept with the Bible. And I remember praying, if you're real, God, I need you to show me. And is it possible I could have been saved then?
It was like that when I was little. I used to open my grandmother's Bible. I used to read a lot, but I didn't know anything. I used to
No,
know
me
there
neither.
was a God. I even remember preaching to people when I was a young carpenter. And I used to work with various guys. I used to remember telling them about God. And meanwhile, when I think back, No, I didn't know anything. Didn't go to church yet. Didn't quote get saved. Didn't read the Bible. Why was I preaching to these people?
So, Matthew, you believe in the total depravity of man, correct?
Not the way a Calvinist would define it.
So man's not totally depraved.
How do you
Okay.
I don't
define
think so.
depraved?
All right. So
What do you, can you
don't believe
describe
in-
that, Stacy? Tell
What's
me
that?
tell me what you think that is.
I believe
Total
that man
depravity.
cannot save himself. That's the depravity.
Okay.
Me
Man
too.
cannot obtain salvation through his own works. That's total depravity.
And I believe that.
Okay. Unconditional election. You do believe that, right?
To
No,
a
I
degree.
do not.
Unconditional election. So it's not that you,
It's conditional.
it's conditional. So God chooses you after you choose him, basically. Okay.
No, I wouldn't say it like that. I would say you believe. You don't choose God like there's multiple gods. Let me choose this one. You don't choose God. You believe.
Right. But the thing, all right. So unconditional election is that God elects those who choose him unconditionally. You would agree with that, right?
No, I
What?
would never put it like that, ever. Why do you have to add the word election? The gospel goes out there, and you either believe it or you don't.
Well, you do believe in limited atonement, correct?
Not the way the Calvinist defines it in Tulip.
I'm not talking, well, so you do not believe that the blood of Christ was shed for those who believe. You believe what?
I believe the blood of Christ was shed for everyone.
Okay. So it's universal atonement.
No.
Well, you
See
only
what
have two
you
choices.
see,
Limited or
Rory, do you
universal.
see what Stacy's doing here?
No, I'm just trying to see what you do agree with Tulip and what you don't agree, because I'll answer the question for you. You do believe that grace is resistible. So obviously the I is gone and the P is gone. So I'm just wanting to look at the other ones, and you're wanting to fight me every step of the way. So look, as far as atonement is concerned, you only have two choices. Either it's limited or universal. So you have to pick one.
No. It goes further than that. What do you mean by limited? See, in my view, you have to believe. So in that sense, it's going to end up being to only certain people. But I'm not saying God puts a limit on it. See, there's two different ways you can look at limited. And you can't box me into a corner on that, because if God puts out the gospel and then whosoever will may come, which is exactly what it says, then it's not limited in the sense that God is only directing it towards certain people. It's limited in the end because only certain people will accept it. There's two different kinds of limitation. You know what I mean?
Okay.
So that's how I would say no. I don't believe in the L in Tulip the way Calvinists describe it, but I would say that it ends up being limited because I'm not a universalist. But the reason is because people have a choice whether to accept it or not. So Rochelle is saying like the wedding invitation.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, I mean, you're invited. I think
Everyone.
the thing that gets confusing is, you look at what God did with Israel, and it looks a whole lot like Tulip.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I think is.
Do you believe that Tulip sort of applied to them in
In a
the
way,
prophetic era where God was fulfilling and creating prophecy and making it come to pass back in the deterministic stage of what you believe took place back then?
sort of. I think that most of Israel, I mean, there's so much of the history of Israel that we don't read about, that we never can. They're only like probably, I mean, what could it be? Like 1 millionth or much, much less of what actually happened with Israel, between Israel and God, was actually recorded for us to read. And I believe that out of all of that history, there were certain points where God wanted something to happen and would just, no matter what, that would happen.
Well,
But
I think that the tradition was anytime a prophet had a word from the Lord, they would call out the prophets. I mean, they would call out the scribes. They would Isaiah would call out for the harpists to come out on the streets, and so they would record what God was saying. They were like leaning on every aspect of what he would say, and then they didn't like what he said, obviously, but they were looking for the next word. So I do believe that the majority of those important events that took place in the lifespan of Israel is recorded for us.
right, but the people, did they have a choice whether to come out and hear the prophet or not? That's the question.
I see.
You can't know that, but you can surmise by what you read. It seems like God was giving them choices the whole time, and I understand that many times they didn't. Especially when it came to certain prophecies.
Mm-hmm.
But even if that were so, I mean, even if God directed everything for Israel, which I don't believe by any stretch, then what's the reason for the change from Old Covenant to New? I think that's the theme of the Bible. It's the Old Covenant to New, the covenantal theme and lens. And I think that that's what God had in mind. And once the gospel is established, it's open. We talked about this so many times. Then I don't think there's any reason for God to be manipulating things and setting up this prophecy and making this person write this down for the Bible. It's done. It's written. It's for all to read. The Bible got disseminated. The printing press invented in the 1500s. Now it's whosoever will may come. It's the new covenant. Christ has been lifted up. Nobody has any particular thing that they have to do. There's no apostles being, created. That's how I see things going. But I still think within Israel, free will was the paradigm. I just think that in order for God to make some of these things happen, either he had to completely direct things or work with people's free will here and there. And I think there's a good combination of it going on. What do you think, Lori?
Sure. I do. Sorry, my kid was just talking to me here for a minute.
I know, it's so different. Stacy and I, we're so alike in so many ways, but we're so different in this. Stacy finds great comfort in, believing that God is, controlling everything, and I find it abhorrent. I find it like a, I don't know, like a monstrous God that's, like a tyrant, a tyrannical, not tyrannical, but how do I describe it? Just almost maniacal, I have to say. That's how it
OCD
is.
God. You would say he's an OCD God, obsessive compulsive.
You're like, why would God, like, if I was gonna create, if I had the ability to create, and we kind of do. I mean, we're procreators. I got 3 boys. I procreated them. I didn't create them, but I procreated them. So I can kind of use a comparison there and say, well, why, I hope my boys love me because of my attributes and because of how I treat them. And, I'd rather them do it that way. Not because, I can make them. And I can't make them. So it's not a great comparison,
I guess I used to see God in a very crazy way. But the more I compare my relationship with my children, I think the more I see God in a different light as well. It's brought a lot of all these things have brought a lot of questions into my life. My relationship with the Lord has really.
I think it's good to have questions. It's when you have all the answers that you need to beware.
Oh, I don't have any. They come slowly, and then I get a whole new pile of questions. So then I forget where my answers were. I'm definitely more at peace, but
That's what it's all about in this vapor we call life.
yeah. I guess I think with my relationship with God, I struggle in what to pray for, what to ask for, what to talk to Him about. Is it, is my talking to Him redundant? If it is all pre-planned and predestined and everything is done, there's really no point in talking to Him.
Well, not for supplication, but for other things, for relationship. Because you wouldn't go to your parents and only talk to them when you want something only, right?
No,
You'll
you're
talk
right.
to them with other things. I'm actually going through a class in Sunday school now. It just started on prayer. And one acronym that is useful in prayer, it's called ACTS, ACTS. Have you ever heard of that before?
I have, I think, but I can't remember what it is.
All right. ACTS, A is for adoration, and then T is for thanksgiving, and then C is for confession, and then S is for supplication.
Yeah. See, I struggle with the adoration. I struggle with that aspect of my prayer life. I struggle with worship. I always have all my life. It was always artificial.
If you take the Lord's Prayer, I think the reason why they come up with that idea is because all of those aspects are in the Lord's Prayer. Some of them are maybe a stretch, but I don't, when I look at it more, I can kind of see it in there.
Yeah. But I need it to be real to me.
Adoration, thanksgiving.
I'm thankful. I don't understand life. I don't understand the world, so to speak. I don't see people reaping what they sow. I don't understand. I don't understand it. It doesn't seem to sit. And I've probably been brainwashed over the years, that people get their just due. Definitely not in this lifetime.
Sometimes I've seen it.
Sometimes, yes, but often not.
Because obviously the phrase would never exist, you reap what you sow, if that never occurred.
Yeah.
According to what you look for, I think is, you'll find it if you look for it.
Say that again.
Seek and you shall find. If you're looking for it, you'll start seeing it more.
I have looked for it, and that's why I don't understand it. These are just honest things that I struggle with.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I guess because my beliefs are all kind of sitting on a fence, they have been for quite a while now. I lean certain ways now, but I don't know for sure. But I don't feel that real need to know right now. I'm okay. Whereas before I felt like I needed to know, and I don't feel that now. But yeah, you know, if all things are settled, I just don't see the point in praying for my children's salvation. Things like that.
Mm-hmm.
If God hasn't elected them. But on the other hand, I see when I am in constant prayer for my children, I can see a big change in their lives. I don't know. I mean, tell me how all 4 of us kids got saved. Actually, 6 of us out of 7. And none of us were raised in a church or knew anything. Nothing. How does that work?
You don't know. You could have all believed, or you could have all been chosen. It's either way. You know, it could go either way. It has.
What's interesting is my mother would not darken the doors of a church, but she always believed in God. And she began to pray for us when she was about 45 years old, maybe 50. Yeah, probably about 50. And it was just literally bang, 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 bang. We all came to know the Lord.
You know, it's funny you said prayed for somebody. I've heard Calvinists use the argument, you know, like, why do we pray for others' salvation? I've heard their answer, because God uses that prayer, as if, you know, God couldn't have just chosen the person. He had to use your prayer. So he chose you to pray, and then he chose them to believe through your prayer. Like, I don't know. This is just convoluted to me.
Look who decided to join us, right?
Who is it? Sandy?
Yeah.
Oh, now you come at the end of the night when everybody's so sleepy and they want to go to sleep.
I thought I'd peek on and see if you crazies were still up.
Of course we're still.
Crazily enough.
We got snow and the roads are icy. Had to go help my dad out with the neighbor.
You're shoveling snow. I'm so happy and thankful to the Lord that I am not shoveling any snow right now.
I don't shovel snow unless I have to. I got a husband for that.
To make your slave do it?
2 teenage boys. Amen. Slave boys.
Are those your slaves?
Yeah, I don't want them to ever leave. I don't want them to move out. Oh, I probably missed a good night, huh?
No.
Oh, no, you didn't miss anything, because guess what?
What?
It's recorded.
Oh, that's right.
No, we're just talking about Calvinism versus.
But no, ultimately you did miss something, because there was a part that was not recorded that happened before the part that was recorded, so you did miss a little bit.
No, actually, we were just talking about how Mystery Babylon was ancient Jerusalem. That's what we were talking about.
I knew it.
Actually, this whole night has been because of you, so you should listen to what Matthew says.
I know. I like what he wrote about that. What was it?
No, but like literally our whole conversation tonight has been centered around you, kind of. You, specifically.
Well, I got to figure this stuff out. I mean, you guys are either going to make me a
We're
believer.
going to bombard you until you concede. We're gonna
I'm a
catapult
lover. I'm a
fireballs.
lover, not a fighter.
I know, me either. But you know.
Don't let him bully you.
No, Matthew, he's a feisty one. That Matthew.
He can't be.
Do you have
Yeah, I
snow
get that.
up
He
there?
was
Lori?
predestined to it. What's that?
You get snow up there?
Oh man, did we get a dump of snow? And now it's minus 30.
We're getting lucky over here.
Oh, we don't see minus. I think the coolest I've ever seen it here, and this has been over a decade, -2. That was the coldest I ever seen it here.
Yeah. I drove through there when it was raining one time. I thought it was really cold.
It rains a lot.
Yeah, it just came down in sheets. It doesn't trickle. Like it never rains here like that. But we did get lots of snow. It's so nice out, but it got really cold all of a sudden.
Oh, so Sandy, what did I write? Did I make you think
Something on
about
this
anything?
about a court date. Did everything go well for you?
Oh.
It's just continued.
BRB.
They don't know what to do.
What are we at the movie theater? Silence is golden or something? I'm preparing packages for some of you, but like, dang, don't put me on the spot or anything.
We're all talked out.
Nothing more than the audience hates nothing more than just dead air and just like nobody said. It's like
We're
I
all
was
talked
actually
out.
about to sign out. It's past an hour, but when
Yeah.
Andy came on, I wanted to say goodnight.
All right. Good
that's
night.
fine. That's fine if you want to do that. It's just like we need to like keep it moving.
Yeah, it's way past my bedtime too.
It happens.
All right. Good night, guys.
Alrighty then.
Night, Stacey.
Now, Lori. Lori.
Lori. Anyway, just tell her anyway. It's recorded, so do it.
I'd say Sandy loves prayer, and so we were talking about prayer right before you came on.
Ah, fair enough.
So maybe you guys could talk about that a little bit. She loves prayer, and so you were talking about prayer, and so there you go.
Good stuff.
Right,
Thanks, Doc. Thanks, bro.
So I suggest that we pray that Stacy stops believing in Calvinism.
I was gonna say, what's Calvinism? But it seems like you guys are too tired, so I'll just look it up.
I'm just teasing.
Oh, you
I
are?
don't want to change Stacy's mind. He's comfortable with his belief.
Well, what's the extremist view of Calvinism in a nutshell?
That God is really directing every blade of grass,
Oh
the
yeah, you
movement
told me that.
of it,
Oh yeah.
and that's basically, and we're just like living through it. We're having a relationship with God. The things that we do are for, our benefit, but, I always ask, well, why do we need to be benefited if things are predestined? Like, to me, that just makes my head blow up. But
My head blows up. My head blows up over it too, because not because I'm a Calvinist thinker like that per se, because I just kind of don't. Oh, man, you can't go there. But if you're God and you know the beginning from the end, I mean, well, then he kind of knows, doesn't he? Doesn't he know the next thing I'm going to say or do or
no,
no?
the Bible never says that, but that's my view.
Yeah, it kind of doesn't. I mean, it's what.
It's taught in church that God knows the future. Do you believe in free will?
Yeah, that's why it gets into a mind bend. That's why.
Exactly. But it doesn't have to. It could be so simple. It doesn't have to bend the mind at all. God gave you a free will. You make choices. And God doesn't know those choices because that's the definition of free will. Now, if God decided that Sandy is going to do and say this tomorrow, no matter what, then God can manipulate your free will and make you do and say that. And guess what? God knows today what you're going to do tomorrow. Why? Because he's going to make you do it. Can God do that? Yes. Does he? No. Did he do that with the cross and with the apostles and with Israel and with David? Yes, he did that. Does that mean he's doing it with you today? No. That's my whole thing. That's the way the Bible reads, and that's the way I think everybody should believe. God created people with a free will on purpose because that's the way he wants it. And then when he wants something to happen, he violates the free will or he manipulates the free will. He's allowed to do that. He's God. He makes something happen unless he changes his mind. And there you go. You have prophecy. There would be no such thing as prophecy if God directed everything that happens. Prophecy would be a little redundant. Prophecy is when there's a free will paradigm and God says, this is going to happen. And then he works to make that happen. That's prophecy. See what I'm saying? So in a predestination world, what is prophecy? Everything is prophecy. Whether God says it's going to happen or not, it's all been predetermined. I just don't believe that's the way it goes. I don't believe that's the way the Bible's written. We can't gather that from the Bible. We have to go beyond what's written and say, no, God is directing. That thing that God gave that guy a choice on, nah, he really didn't have a choice.
Yeah, I think people get the idea that we're all, everything about us and what we're going to do or say is already known by God, because there's a couple people, I'm thinking Jacob, wasn't he one? And Esau, and he said he knew him in the womb. Jacob I loved, Esau I hated, that kind of talk. But I see that kind of like as you just explained, like he might have been pre-chosen, predestined for a particular, what God wanted done. Like Mary,
Sure.
He stepped into her world and said, guess what, Mary, you're beloved and you get to be the daughter of the Lord and Savior. What?
Yeah.
I don't read anywhere in the Bible that she was expecting that to happen or asked for that to happen. So I think you're right. Yeah, and who are we as the vessels to say, what God does if he makes us for noble or ignoble purposes? Yeah, I don't know. I don't, yeah.
Who was that?
What was that? Albert?
Albert, was that you?
Sorry, my bad.
That was recorded.
It was
Erase it.
recorded. It's fine.
Erase it.
No,
That
I'm not
last
gonna
beer didn't
erase
go
it.
down that easy, eh?
Why would I erase it? It's natural. First the natural, then the spiritual. Why did I do that? Burned. Got you. No, I'm just kidding.
But see, Matthew
yeah.
doesn't believe now that we are
Fine. I still love
predestined.
Matthew. It doesn't matter. I don't care whether he believes or not of these things that you're talking about. I've seen
What?
enough. I actually met this dude in person. So like I can speak like he's a good dude. Like
Sandy,
Yep.
Yeah.
Matthew doesn't see that there is any. He believes that all prophecy is fulfilled now. So,
yeah, Matthew's your best ally because he definitely doesn't believe like I do.
but he doesn't see us as being chosen for whatever now
Right.
because he's partial open theist.
Partial open theist.
Oh, geez,
Yeah,
you
that's
better not go down that road.
you're not gonna find much on that. He'll have to explain it to you himself.
Well, I came up with the term partial open theist.
So what in your prayer life, you
Mhm.
don't pray for people then? Because
Oh, sure. Probably more than somebody who's a Calvinist. Why would a Calvinist pray? What an open theist believes, and I added the word partial to open theism, but there is a doctrine called open theism. And in most of the Christian world, it's totally heretical. Because open theism doesn't really speak of God as much as the future. It says that the future is open. What's it open to? Well, it's consistently saying that if you have a free will, then you make choices. You make real choices. You have options. You know, you're limited in your humanity, but you have options. And as long as all of humanity has options, like real options, not predestined stuff, then you're actually minute by minute, moment by moment, creating your future. And we all live like that. We all try to think about what we're going to do and how we're going to do it. So you're living your life, whether you believe you have free will or not, you're living like you have free will. You're making decisions, and you're thinking that you're creating your own future. Now, in most Christian circles, if you are free will, most Christians call themselves Arminian, after Jacob Arminius, as opposed to Calvin, his contemporary, who believed that everything was predestined. But I'm neither of those, because I don't think either one of them lines up with Scripture. Jacob Arminius believed that you have free will. But he also believes that despite the fact that you have free will, God still knows every blessed thing that everyone is going to do in advance for all of eternity. The open theist comes along and says, now that doesn't make any sense. Because God is God, He's all powerful, He's all knowing, but if you're creating your future as you go, then your future doesn't actually exist. There isn't some film, or there isn't some physicality where you're doing the things that you're going to do in the future and somebody can see it. It hasn't happened yet. So the future, by definition, is open. And if the future is open by God's choice, then God literally chose not to know it. Could God have a pretty good idea of what you're going to do? Sure, He knows you better than you know yourself. Does He probably know what you're going to have for breakfast tomorrow? Yeah, I bet. But does He know what you're going to say 5 days from now at 10 a.m. in the morning? I don't think so. That would be ridiculous. Does He need to know what you're going to say? No. So that's What
That's your
partial
view?
open theism? And it's totally logical, it's totally consistent, and it's totally how the Bible reads.
Yeah, that's
Nowhere.
what I am then, because I think, now, remember Cain was upset because God wasn't as pleased with his offering as Abel's. But he comes to Cain later because he knows his heart.
Right.
But
If
but
you
what he
do
felt in his
well,
heart came first, which I think was like jealousy, twinge. And then God goes to him and says, kind of
right.
warns him, like, sin wants to have you, but he had free will to make a different choice, and God lovingly was trying to nudge him in the right direction to make the right choice. But I don't think I think that's free will. Yeah, I would agree with that. That was a good explanation. Yeah, if it hasn't happened yet and we have free will, then God can't really know what we're going to do ahead of that
Then
future
right.
because it hasn't happened yet.
And that's just logical. Now that's the way the Bible reads. That's why when God tests, for example, Abraham, and Abraham obeys, and then God says, "Now I know." What do you mean, now I know? I thought God knows everything. Now I know that you believe. Now I know that you trust me. That type of thing. And that's how the Bible reads. Now, the thing is, the Calvinist and the person who's not an open theist will see all the prophecy that takes place in the Bible, and they'll say, well, how can you believe that? Look at what God did. God said this was going to happen, and then it happened. Well, hang on a minute. Does God, did the thing happen? In other words, did God give the person free will and then say, in a free will system, I know what's going to happen, and then the thing happened? Or did God decide that that person is going to do that thing and say, that's going to happen, and then God made it happen? It's definitely the latter, because God is omnipotent. Now, I say that God is omniscient, but I define the word omniscience different than most Christians do. Omniscience to me means that God knows everything that is possible to know. If the future doesn't exist and you have free will, then God doesn't know it. But did God know when he created Adam that Jesus Christ would die on the cross? 1,000% he knew. It says that Jesus Christ was slain before the foundation. God knew that he was going to manifest himself in the flesh and die on the cross. And what did he do? He made sure that it happened. That's why Jesus fulfilled all of the feasts on the day, because God manipulated the system. And he did it for prophecy's sake, for the Bible's sake. Once Christ dies, then the gospel is out there. You can believe it or you can reject it. The Bible's written. Does God need to manipulate things? No. He manipulated it for the gospel's sake, but he also wanted to give you an example to read about Israel. The whole book is about whether you believe, it's about faith versus works. That's what the Bible's about. So once God establishes, hey, look at Israel. They tried to do it by works and they failed. So here's the new way. It's by faith. And then, he picks Paul. Did he choose Paul? Did he choose the apostles? 100%. It says they were chosen. But I think that's what the mistake of the Calvinist is that they see that some things were chosen, some things were predestined, and then they apply that to the whole of human history, which is a big stretch. Just because the apostles were chosen doesn't mean you and I were. It's all about context. So I'm glad I have a partial open theist on the panel.
No, I changed my mind.
But I got to get you to believe Mystery Babylon was ancient Jerusalem. But anyway, it's too late for me to do that.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot.
I'm out of here.
Everybody's leaving.
Yeah. Good night, you guys.
Yep.
Peace,
I
peace.
got to go to bed
Sorry.
too.
Good night.
Nighties.
Peace.
Nighties.